Chapter 4077. It was a pity that Xiao Hua's other cultivation methods were all complete, but he didn't have many cultivation methods for tempering his bones. He didn't even have a complete cultivation method for tempering his bones. His current fire origin was quickly cultivated to the pinnacle by him. His entire white bones had turned into a brilliant golden color. After finishing the bone tempering, Xiao Hua practiced other techniques. He cultivated the 5 elements escape technique he obtained from Yazi auction house to the extreme. As for the most difficult to find wind escape technique, because he didn't have any techniques, Xiao Hua could only cultivate it to the intermediate level. Devil spirit Xiao Hua wasn't a part of Xiao Hua's primordial spirit, but he was controlled by Xiao Hua using blood shadow technique. Devil spirit Xiao Hua first obtained the blood bones fluctuation in the god-devil blood pool. His heavenly cave had already undergone a qualitative transformation. Inside the heavenly prison, there were even more fluctuations. The devil race was similar to the monster race. They relied on devouring blood and devil chi to cultivate. This kind of strange energy wave was much more useful than blood. The devil spirit Xiao Hua's growth in this heavenly prison was extremely fast. It was even higher than Xiao Hua's Dao sect cultivation by a large margin. Sometimes, when Xiao Hua saw devil spirit Xiao Hua's cultivation base advance by leaps and bounds, Xiao Hua sighed with emotion. However, devil spirit Xiao Hua's cultivation base increased the most rapidly. Unexpectedly, it was Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua. When he first entered the heavenly prison, Xiao Hua felt that there was no noble spirit qi here. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's cultivation might stagnate. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua also found the noble spirit qi's fluctuation, but this fluctuation was extremely small. However, the true qi in Xiao Hua's chest had been cultivated for a long time, and had even reached the 18th layer of the qi refining realm. After the seal was lifted, this true qi transformed into the true qi of a Confucian cultivator, and finally formed the true 5 qi unification. This process was the most tortuous, but also the longest. Therefore, after obtaining the innate true qi kindling, the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua embarked on the correct path of Confucian cultivation. Although he borrowed the fluctuations of the heavenly prison, he didn't just rely on those fluctuations. He used his internal organs to stimulate the 9 cauldrons, cultivated the 5 qi unification, and finally condensed the 3 flowers of his innate true qi on the basis of the 5 qi unification. While Xiao Hua's Yuan Shen had made great progress, Xiao Hua's disciples had also made unimaginable progress. Although Xiao Hua's mind avoided entering the space to accelerate the flow of time, thousands of years still passed in the space. For ordinary Dao sect cultivators, these thousands of years were enough for them to cultivate to the void refinement realm. For disciples like Liu Yi, reaching the void refinement realm was even easier. However, since Xiao Hua understood the principle of good preparation, he also had all kinds of experience in cultivation. When he asked the green-robed Xiao Hua to guide his disciples in their cultivation, he deliberately suppressed their breakthroughs. Even when they were in the aura refining realm, he also made them attempt to break through to the 18th layer of the aura refining realm. When they were pregnant, he also imprinted all the meridians in their bodies into their minds. Of course, not everyone would be able to successfully refine all the meridians in their nascent soul. Everyone's meridians would be different depending on their aptitude. However, just by relying on these nascent soul meridians, how could they be a little bit stronger than other Dao sect cultivators? Moreover, under Xiao Hua's instructions, the green-robed Xiao Hua made them cultivate other orthodoxes' cultivation methods. Liu Yi cultivated Buddhism, Wang Bianfei cultivated Confucianism, Wu Tian cultivated divination, and so on. Therefore, on the surface, Xiao Hua's disciples' cultivation was only at the 6th or 7th grade, but each of them had the strength and standard to establish a sect. The green-robed Xiao Hua was in charge of the fortune gate. Although his disciples didn't learn as many things as Liu Yi and the others, there were many disciples whose cultivation was stronger than Liu Yi and the others. This made the green-robed Xiao Hua flaunt in front of Xiao Hua for a long time. As for the fortune gate's development, it made the green-robed Xiao Hua smile from ear to ear. Because the world's spiritual energy was abundant in the space, and there were no other sects, the Fortune Gate's original 30,000 disciples cultivated to an extremely high level. Moreover, as the disciples married, the Fortune Gate rapidly expanded, reaching 200,000 disciples in the end. Later, under Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's suggestion, the Fortune Gate no longer recruited disciples, but chose to impart suitable cultivation methods. Therefore, almost 2 million people in the space cultivated Dao sect, and they were all considered Fortune Gate disciples. Then there were the 2 million people in the space. Where did they come from? The green-robed Xiao Hua didn't know, nor did the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua. Only Xiao Hua knew in his heart that these were the souls reincarnated from the yin side of the space. In Wuyuan County, Jingyu County, and Fanchang County, Xiao Hua had taken in more than 100,000 people who were killed by the infernal judge's clone, but the number of souls he absorbed with the netherworld origin power was 10 times more. These souls lived and grew on the underworld fruit, and when the yin and yang side of the space intersected, they would be born from the yin side of the space to the yang side of the space. When the yang side of the space reached the end of its lifespan, the souls would be transferred to the yin side of the space and enter the underworld fruit again. This kind of reincarnation of life and death was the most primitive law of heaven and earth. After this law was born, there was a mysterious law power that entered Xue's soul. Of course, although Liu Yi's mother and Fu Jiwen's parents were nourished by the world's spiritual energy, they couldn't escape death. After using the rejuvenation pill, they still fell into the yin side of the space and reincarnated as humans. Xiao Hua couldn't see through all the mysterious changes happening in the space, but the heavenly Dao Xiao Hua and Karma Xiao Hua were watching everything from the inside the space at all times. Thus, they were able to comprehend all kinds of mysteries. All of this might not be of any use to the current Xiao Hua, but it would be of vital importance to Xiao Hua's future cultivation. On this day, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and looked at the darkness around him, and asked, "Green-robed fellow Daoist, how many years have passed?" "Let me tell you, fellow Daoist, what you and I have experienced is probably 20,000 years. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied with a smile, "Nascent soul stage cultivators like us should have passed through the 8th stage. Every 1,000 years, there would be a tribulation, so it would take 8,000 years. Moreover, the lightning tribulation can't be encountered all the time, so it should be 20,000 years. Damn it. 20,000 years are." Xiao Hua took a deep breath as if he had a toothache. 20,000 years of seclusion, I only reached the Mahayana realm. Speaking of which, the last few realms actually took so much time. Green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile, although it is said that 20,000 years have passed, there is a lot of time without any fluctuations for cultivation. I'm afraid you and I have only cultivated for 10,000 years. Besides, the cultivation method is very clear. Generally speaking, it takes 600 years to cultivate the gold core realm, 1,200 years to cultivate the nascent soul realm, 2,400 years to cultivate the spirit separation realm, 5,600 years to cultivate the void refinement realm, 11,200 years to cultivate the body integration realm, and nearly 10,000 years to cultivate the mid-Mahayana realm. You can calculate it yourself. How many years will it take? Fellow Daoist only used 20,000 years to cultivate to the middle stage of the Mahayana realm. It is already very rare in the world. Don't mention the cultivation method of the Daoist sect. Xiao Hua waved his hand with a wry smile. Now, I don't even know if my cultivation method is still in the Mahayana realm. Fellow Daoist Longmai has already completely left my meridians. I don't have any meridians in my body at all. Fellow Daoist Longmai is just relying on the secret technique of the dragon race to temporarily live in I's body. Although you don't have any meridians, your Daoist sect's cultivation method, true essence, and tempering fluctuations can still rely on your body. As long as you have a body, you are still a Daoist sect cultivator. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied with certainty. Xiao Hua didn't refute and said, "You and I have been debating about this for thousands of years. I have long been tired of it, so let's not talk about it in the future. Up to you." Green-robed Xiao Hua shrugged and said, "I also don't have any meridians. Aren't I still a Daoist sect cultivator? What about the time in the space?" Xiao Hua changed the topic and asked. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied, It has already been 10,000 years since fellow Daoist last came to the space. The time in the space is still stable, more than half of the time in the heavenly prison. It should be around 6,000 years now. 6,000 years in the space. Xiao Hua smiled wryly and said, then I'm afraid it will be 5,000 years in the hidden immortal continent. When we go back, things will remain the same, but people will change. Hehe, I am looking forward to it. I wonder if the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate or I's Fortune Gate is more powerful. Green-robed Xiao Hua said with a hint of showing off. Xiao Hua didn't miss the opportunity to remind, green-robed fellow Daoist, don't forget that the heaven and earth origin energy in the space is different from the hidden immortal continent. I don't know if the Fortune Gate's disciples can come out of the space. I have already thought about this. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied confidently, although these disciples are gestating their nascent souls in the space, and their nascent souls are condensed from the heaven and earth spirit energy in the space, they still have their physical bodies. With the protection of their physical bodies, they can definitely appear in the hidden immortal continent. Don't forget about fellow Daoist Longmai. Xiao Hua smiled and said, he can't even enter the space at this time. He seems different. Green-robed Xiao Hua scratched his head, I seem to have forgotten something. Fellow Daoist Longmai can definitely enter the space. What about that black box? Did you find anything? Xiao Hua thought of something again. No. That box is normally very tight. Other than not being able to open it, there is nothing unusual. Forget it. Let's wait for the opportunity. Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the dazzling light in the distance. It was like the aurora he saw in the dawn rain continent. He said, how can the things in the heavenly prison be ordinary? That's right, let's wait for the opportunity. Green-robed Xiao Hua agreed, I don't know how many time fragments we have flown past in the past 20,000 years, but we have never found the divine sense mark of the Western Paradise. Now that we are getting further and further away from the Black Ruins Mountain, the hope is getting more and more uncertain. Who knows where the opportunity is? Green-robed fellow Daoist. Xiao Hua looked at the time halo in the distance and didn't care about it. He asked again, say, if I cultivate in the heavenly prison and pass the tribulation, will I ascend to the immortal world? Chapter 4078. That won't happen. Green-robed Xiao Hua replied resolutely and decisively, if you were in the hidden immortal continent or the daybreak continent, even if you were sealed by a powerful enemy, as long as you cultivate to the crossing tribulation stage, all the seals and formations in the world would be destroyed by the laws of heaven and earth, and you would be able to escape. However, this is the heavenly prison, filled with the laws of time. The so-called lightning tribulation is nothing but a wisp of fluctuation inside. The power of the laws of the immortal world is absolutely unable to surpass the laws of time. You absolutely cannot use the power of the heavenly tribulation to escape from the heavenly prison. Speaking up to here, the layers of halos had already approached, and a strange aura and a noisy feeling assaulted his senses. Facing disappointment after disappointment, facing this unfamiliar aura, Xiao Hua casually urged his soul technique and mixed his soul sense with his divine sense. However, after a moment, he was disappointed again. Previously, in Xiao Hua's imagination, he used his divine sense to explore the divine sense mark he left on the Great Snow Mountain, but when he actually used it, he discovered a huge flaw. After all, no matter how powerful his divine sense was, it couldn't exceed the distance of the transmission channel. If he could really use his divine sense to perceive the Great Snow Mountain in Elysium, why would he use the transmission channel? He could directly teleport there. And when Xiao Hua successfully practiced the going south, north technique, Xiao Hua understood that soul techniques already had a way to sense the divine sense mark with his soul sense. Using the power of the soul to sense it was many times more brilliant than using divine sense to explore. Therefore, when Xiao Hua later detected the divine sense mark, he used his divine sense and soul sense to urge his soul technique to complete it. However, even with such a wonderful soul technique, in this vast and boundless heavenly prison, in the cracks of the few fragments of time, he didn't sense any trace of divine sense. Sometimes, Xiao Hua began to doubt whether his soul technique was useful in this heavenly prison, or whether he had drifted too far away in these 20,000 years, and his soul technique couldn't sense the divine sense mark of the Great Snow Mountain. After being disappointed, Xiao Hua looked at the traces of time passing through his body without setting off any ripples, and once again raised a question. What's going on with this Xiao's half-god body and the great god's aura in my body? Could it be that this Xiao had other opportunities? Also, I didn't use my divine sense to explore the first time fragments. Could it be that I have already missed the way back when I entered the heavenly prison? Withdrawing the soul technique, Xiao Hua withdrew his soul consciousness and divine sense from the time fragment. His divine sense had already been cut by 10% by the time fragment, but his soul consciousness didn't suffer too much damage under the protection of his divine sense. Just as Xiao Hua was about to withdraw his soul consciousness and nourish it, a strange aura came from the oval time fragment between the 3 rings of light not far away. Xiao Hua was a little lazy, allowing his body to slowly float by. He didn't release his divine sense or soul sense. However, when he was halfway through, Xiao Hua couldn't help but use his soul technique, releasing his divine sense and soul sense into this time fragment. Just as Xiao Hua's figure was about to float away, Xiao Hua's body suddenly shook violently. His face was filled with incomparable ecstasy, and he almost shouted, "Fellow Daoist Confucian cultivator, quickly activate the going south way north technique." Ah? Good. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua was surprised at first, then suddenly realized. Pu. With a muffled sound, it was no longer soul strands gushing out from between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Instead, it was a fountain of green seal characters that directly spurted out. Then, hundreds of soul strands almost instantly touched these 300 or so basic green seal characters. Wung wung. Another rumbling sound. After all the green seal characters were lit up by Xiao Hua's soul strands, these green seal characters suddenly flew crazily and combined together. In just a moment, a flickering strange fluctuation, a green seal character the size of a fist appeared in the darkness. After that green seal character appeared, it didn't stop rotating at all. With a hong sound, it began to rotate. Strands of black and white light flashed out from this green seal character. Under the black and white light, the tadpole-like green seal character began to roll, swell, and swim towards the depths of the time fragment. Then, an extremely distorted and incomplete transportation channel appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Because this transportation channel wasn't complete, it was filled with the power of space tearing. Moreover, the scattered fluctuations in the time fragment constantly attacked the channel, as if countless large hands were vigorously rubbing this channel. The distortion would change from time to time. Looking at this incomplete transportation channel, Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a smile. After all, this was a plan that he had been brewing countless times for more than 10,000 years. The formation of this transportation channel was more than 10 times faster than before. Although the channel wasn't complete and was abnormally distorted, Xiao Hua understood that everything in the time fragment was distorted by the power of time. Although it looked incomplete, it might not be incomplete on the inside. Therefore, he didn't hesitate at all and immediately took out the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. The green light between his eyebrows shone brightly, enveloping his entire body. Then, within the light, tens of millions of soul strands fell onto the transportation channel. Buzz. Another thunderous rumble sounded. A layer of human-shaped fluctuations appeared around Xiao Hua's body. This fluctuation produced a strong adhesive force that prevented Xiao Hua from flying. Although Xiao Hua was now at the Grand Ascension stage, it was beyond his ability to resist the power of time. In the face of this situation, Xiao Hua, who had been comprehending the laws of time for more than 10,000 years, didn't panic. He knew that this was because he wanted to leave the time region. The time region produced a natural attractive force. Xiao Hua's body moved slightly, and he rubbed his hands. Although it was a lightning technique, there was no lightning or thunderbolt. Only some strange fluctuations appeared from his hands. Moreover, these fluctuations didn't spread in all directions, but rushed in one direction according to Xiao Hua's hand gesture. When the ripples fell within the ripples of the time zone, Xiao Hua's figure spun around, and the adhesive force toward the teleportation channel greatly increased. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the dark green light around Xiao Hua's body flashed, and his figure was actually pulled toward the teleportation channel by the adhesive force of the time zone. Ha ha! Seeing his body fall into the transportation channel as he wished, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Although he often used the principle of borrowing force to exert force with his fists and feet, he couldn't help but feel proud that he could use such a simple technique to bully the powerful power of time. Now that Xiao Hua had entered the tunnel with the greater universe shifting writ, the tunnel, which had been collapsing, immediately stabilized. It was true that the Soul Cultivator's teleportation tunnel couldn't block out the endless ripples of time within the fragment of time, but the entire tunnel had been established. Countless green seal characters surged like tadpoles, and strange shapes and strange lights emerged from the black and white runes. Xiao Hua's body streaked across the murderous ripples as he flew deeper and deeper into the tunnel. Xiao Hua didn't have time to carefully investigate the situation of the transportation channel. He urged the Soul Scholar to connect the transportation channel with the vague divine sense mark in the time fragment. The divine sense mark was like a small lamp in a stormy sea, and wasn't particularly obvious. Xiao Hua even felt that this divine sense mark was somewhat unfamiliar and extremely weak. However, this divine sense mark was exactly the same as his own soul, so Xiao Hua couldn't doubt it. Maybe it's because this Xiao floated in the heavenly prison for too long, and is too far away from the snowy mountain in the western paradise. Xiao Hua slightly closed his eyes and urged the soul technique to think, this divine sense mark is distorted in this time fragment, so this Xiao Hua has this kind of feeling. However, this time fragment is too frightening. Almost every inch of the area has different time fluctuations. Apart from this Xiao Hua who has the body of a half-god and can survive in this time fragment, any other cultivator in the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid they can't survive here for even half a moment, right? The time fragment, as the name implied, was the shattering of time. Just as Xiao Hua perceived, every inch of the time law was different. The entire area was like fireflies rippling on the surface of water. Not only was the transportation channel shattered, even Xiao Hua's own body was also shattered. A body bearing thousands of different time fragments, no immortal or mortal could survive. This was also the reason why no cultivator could escape from the heavenly prison. Xiao Hua admittedly had a way to escape, but he also had a body soaked in primal chaos energy, so he could escape from the heavenly prison with the help of this unimaginable time fragment. Of course, if he could comprehend the time law in the heavenly prison, he could even more comprehend it in this time fragment. Xiao Hua relied on the soul cultivator Xiao Hua to urge the soul technique, and he took the time to comprehend the time law between the fragments. He clearly knew that this kind of opportunity would only come once in a lifetime. Of course, while Xiao Hua was comprehending the time law, his heart was also hanging. After all, the divine sense mark of the snowy mountain was really too weak, and the transportation channel was only supported by this divine sense mark. Sometimes, when the divine sense mark was weak, Xiao Hua's soul technique almost couldn't sense it, and he could only rely on a trace of his soul to maintain the transportation channel. Behind Xiao Hua, the transportation channel had already collapsed, and Xiao Hua had no way back. And this time fragment was different from the time region in the heavenly prison. If Xiao Hua was trapped in this time fragment, he probably wouldn't even be able to cultivate. Just when Xiao Hua was worried, wong wong, the transportation channel around Xiao Hua suddenly issued a rumbling sound. The originally distorted black and white brilliance suddenly stopped, and at the same time, it emitted a brilliant brilliance. The surging green seal characters also seemed to have calmed down, and started to move around the channel in an orderly manner. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands in joy, because the time fragment surrounding him suddenly disappeared, and his comprehension also came to an abrupt end. At this time, how could he not know that he had already left the time fragment? Chapter 4079. Unfortunately, without waiting for his two palms to hit each other, boom. The entire transmission channel once again issued a huge explosion sound. Ouch, not good. The soul cultivator Xiao Hua, who was doing his best to urge his soul technique, cried out in alarm, our divine sense mark has disappeared. I can't sense it at all. How is this possible? Didn't we already escape from the heavenly prison? Xiao Hua, who had just experienced extreme misfortune, instantly felt his heart turn cold. Just now, inside the time fragment, although the divine sense mark was weak, he could still find it. Why was it that after leaving the time fragment and reaching a safe place, the divine sense mark actually disappeared? Unfortunately, at this time, Xiao Hua didn't have time to think about it. The transmission channel that was originally set up in front of him collapsed with a rumbling sound. Within the black and white brilliance, the malevolent fangs of the power of space were revealed. Sigh. Seeing this, Xiao Hua suddenly had a familiar feeling. An unimaginable thought emerged in his mind. Could it be that I also experienced the collapse of a transmission channel before? Of course, the current Xiao Hua was no longer an ignorant person. His whole body flashed with a dark green brilliance, and countless soul threads were released, supporting the transmission channel several hundred zhong in front of him. Then, he rubbed his hands together, and a thick crystal light fell in the surrounding air. In an instant, a huge ball of lightning formed a huge sphere to protect the transmission channel. Catcher, catcher! Outside the lightning, the sound of explosions could be heard all the time. Beads of sweat gradually appeared on Xiao Hua's forehead. After all, contending against the power of heaven and earth with one person's strength was not something an ordinary cultivator could withstand. Under Xiao Hua's protection, the transmission channel still moved somewhat disorderly in the void. Xiao Hua was already powerless to control its direction. Moreover, Xiao Hua also didn't know where the Elysium was. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out after half a cup of tea's time. The space within a radius of several hundred miles shook violently. Amidst the tremors, Xiao Hua flew out with lightning. At this moment, the void was torn apart and shattered. Rays of light and shadow flashed in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua seemed to see a huge starry sky. He saw an azure star that looked like a broken sphere. On one side of this azure star, there was a thick blood mist shrouding it. Woo! A strange wave came from afar. Before Xiao Hua could react, the green light around his body naturally followed the wave and extended out soul strands. That lightning even shattered the void. Xiao Hua's figure was actually pulled into the strange wave. Then, a huge teleportation force came from all directions and landed on Xiao Hua's body. This is a teleportation array. Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment before he suddenly came to a realization. Even though this Xiao's teleportation channel exploded, but it just so happened that someone activated the teleportation channel and passed by this place. This Xiao's body still has the ripples of the teleportation channel, and this ripple was attracted by the ripples of the teleportation channel, and sent this Xiao into this teleportation channel. Damn it! This Xiao's luck is really unparalleled in the world. I can finally return to hidden immortal continent. The pressure inside the teleportation channel was extremely great. Xiao Hua's entire body flickered with lightning. Moreover, because of Xiao Hua's sudden addition, the entire teleportation channel gave birth to a strong repulsive force. The teleportation channel was also somewhat distorted. However, this kind of mutation was as easy as flipping his hand for Xiao Hua, who was proficient in the art of going in the opposite direction. A few green seal characters fell into the teleportation channel between Xiao Hua's eyebrows, and the entire teleportation channel immediately stabilized. After no less than half a cup of tea's time, the pressure on the teleportation channel began to gradually lessen. This must be the ancient teleportation channel left behind by the Elysium world. Xiao Hua knew that the teleportation channel was about to end. He couldn't help but become somewhat pensive. No matter if it's Daybreak Continent or Hidden Immortal Continent, there doesn't seem to be such a long-distance teleportation channel. Swoosh! Seemingly a white light flashed. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly sank. His feet landed on the ground, and he sensed that kind of solidity coming from the ground. Xiao Hua's tears almost flowed out from his eyes. He had been wandering in the heavenly prison for 20,000 years. When did he have this kind of solid feeling? Moreover, when Xiao Hua breathed through his mouth and nose, the heaven and earth origin energy that was close to that of a blessed land's heavenly passage swarmed in, making Xiao Hua unable to adapt. Senior brother, quickly save me. Without waiting for the dizziness in Xiao Hua's mind to disappear, a woman's delicate voice sounded in Xiao Hua's ear. Xiao Hua slightly shook his head. His head was still dizzy. The effect of the teleportation channel had not been eliminated. Although it was not to the extent where the sky and earth were spinning, He was still unable to think normally. Xiao Hua could clearly see that in front of him was actually not a teleportation channel, but an enormous mountain range. The mountain range was filled with huge rocks of different sizes. The left side of the huge rocks was filled with bloodstains. In the bloodstains, some magic weapons and bones were discarded. The magic weapons had all lost their brilliance. The bones did not have any flesh. In the sky above the bloodstains, a petite woman wearing an emerald green dress was holding a whip in her hand, blocking left and right. The clothes on the woman's body seemed to be a protective magic weapon, emitting a dark green brilliance. This brilliance was like a cold flower that protected her entire body. Around her, several monsters covered in pitch-black scales flapped their wings that were tens of jong in size, tightly surrounding her. However, in this encirclement, there was only one monster with a similar figure to this woman, but it was also covered in scales. It was spitting out pitch-black flames from its mouth as it fought with this woman. The woman's body also had some scars that dyed her emerald green dress red. As the woman waved her whip, it was like a raging wave of whip shadows pouncing out. Those layers of heaven and earth origin energy turned into wind blades that crazily chopped towards the monster in front of her. However, these whip shadows were reduced to ashes in the flames. When the wind blades landed on the monster's scales, they only produced sparks. They were unable to cause too much damage to the monster. When the woman saw Xiao Hua, her eyes were filled with ecstasy as she hurriedly shouted. When this woman's voice came out, it naturally attracted the attention of many monsters. They all turned their heads to look at Xiao Hua. "Senior brother?" Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly looked down at his arm and asked curiously, "Miss, when did I become your senior brother?" Brother. At this moment, from under Xiao Hua's feet, a low voice sounded, "This uninvited brother, I am her senior brother." Xiao Hua looked down and then hurriedly jumped to the side. He bowed and said, Sorry, it was all my carelessness. I apologize to you, brother." The place where Xiao Hua was previously standing was a middle-aged man wearing a daoist robe. Xiao Hua had stepped on him between the huge rocks. At this moment, the man's bruised and swollen face poked out from the crack in the rock with difficulty. He raised his similarly bloody arm and pointed his index finger at his nose that had a corner cut off. Roar! Without waiting for the man to speak, the several monsters surrounding the woman roared. As if they had a tacit understanding, they spread their wings and surrounded Xiao Hua and the man in the middle. Huff! At the same time, several black flames mixed with black smoke rushed towards Xiao Hua. "Brother, be careful," the man said. A red brilliance sprayed out from his mouth. A small sword flashed with flames and stabbed towards one of the monsters. When did the hidden immortal continent have daoist cultivators? Xiao Hua was slightly surprised, but he laughed and said, "Hey, no need to worry. It's just a few monsters. Watch this Xiao's method." As he spoke, Xiao Hua waved his hands. Rumble. Huge thunderous sounds came from his hands. Several bolts of lightning that were even more arrogant than a huge sword appeared and landed on the bodies of several monsters. Clang! The man's flying sword landed on the monster's body first. Sparks splashed out from the monster's scales. Soon after, the flying sword ruthlessly pierced into the monster's body. Xiao Hua's thunderbolt came down with a loud bang. Roar! Several monsters only let out half a scream before they were turned into powder under the thunderbolt. The man who was about to fly out from the crack in the rock was dumbstruck. The woman who had been paying attention to this place was also stunned. It was also at this moment that the monster spread its wings. The tail with sharp thorns pierced through the dark green brilliance and landed in front of the woman's soft breasts. The woman woke up, but everything was too late. The pitch-black tail dripping with pus was already less than 3 inches away from her heart. The woman's beautiful face turned pale, but in the blink of an eye, she felt a sudden warmth at her waist. Then, her body strangely retreated. She watched as the tail of the monster suddenly moved away. Then, there was another bright flash of lightning. The monster was reduced to ashes in the flash of lightning. Everything seemed like an indescribable dream. However, at this moment, a breath that was like sunlight filled the tip of her nose, causing her heart to abruptly jump, and her pretty face abruptly heated up. "Miss." Xiao Hua's gentle voice sounded. "Are you okay?" The woman woke up and hurriedly struggled from Xiao Hua's embrace. She bowed and said, "Thank you, Senior, for saving me. Junior is fine." "Hehe, that's good." Xiao Hua pinched his chin. He looked to the left and said with a smile, "Is this hidden immortal continent or Pure Land? Which sect are you disciples of?" This Xiao hasn't returned to the 3 continents for a long time. It's really unfamiliar. Hidden immortal continent. Pure Land. 3 continents. The woman pursed her lips and smiled. She replied, "Seems like Senior's transfer array is also wrong. This is not the 3 continents Senior wants to go to. This is the ruins. Junior's name is Yu Mingxin, a disciple of fragrant religion." Boom. Yu Mingxin's words hit Xiao Hua like a thunderbolt. He looked around in disbelief and released his divine sense. Woo! A huge wind whistled around Yu Mingxin. Yu Mingxin looked at Xiao Hua in surprise. An indescribable pressure slowly spread out from Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Yu Mingxin did his best to resist this pressure. At the same time, Yu Mingxin's reverence for Xiao Hua increased. The man in the distance had just jumped out from the crack in the rock. Before he could fly over, he was also shocked by Xiao Hua's divine sense hurricane and pressure. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stood there respectfully and quietly waited. Chapter 4080. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua retracted his divine sense. A strange expression appeared on his face as he looked at Yu Mingxin and said with a smile, "Since this is not the 3 continents, why are your words?" However, Xiao Hua only spoke half a sentence before he was stunned. When he saw Yu Mingxin and heard what he said, he was ecstatic. Moreover, his head was dizzy, so he didn't care and casually answered. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that the words spoken by Yu Mingxin and that middle-aged man were not the language of the hidden immortal continent or the Western Paradise. They were also not the language of the Dawn Rain continent. However, these words seemed to be engraved in Xiao Hua's heart. Xiao Hua couldn't help but say it out loud. "What's wrong with Junior's words?" Yu Mingxin blinked his bright eyes and looked at Xiao Hua strangely. The way he tilted his head was very cute. "Where is this place?" Xiao Hua panicked. "Have you heard of Lu Town? Have you heard of Western Paradise, Hidden Immortal Continent, Dawn Rain Continent or Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" "Senior, what you said is very strange. I don't think there's such a name in my cultivation world." Yu Mingxin thought for a while and shook his head. "The place Junior is at is called the Ruins. It's a remote corner of the cultivation world. Or perhaps the place Senior wants to go is somewhere else. However, if Senior wants to leave the ruins, it's a bit troublesome now." That man respectfully flew over and bowed. "Junior Yu Changming of the Incense Cult greets Senior. I. Xiao Hua. You can call me Daoist Xiao." Xiao Hua said to Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming absent-mindedly, "Why can't I leave the ruins?" "Yes, Daoist Xiao." Yu Mingxin's eyes lit up as he explained, "Daoist Xiao, you should know that the ruins is a small corner of the cultivation world. It doesn't have many transfer arrays to other places in the cultivation world. Usually, it's very peaceful. However, hundreds of years ago, for some unknown reason, there was a problem with the transportation formation that led to the outside world. Not only could it not be transported out, but people from the devil world also suddenly appeared in the ruins. Now, the ruins are surrounded by the devil dwellers. The 3 major sects and hundreds of small sects in the ruins are trying their best to defend against the devil dwellers. Although the immortals' dharmic powers are great, it won't be easy for you to leave immediately. The reason why Daoist Master Xiao was able to come here with me was because of the deviation in the transmission array around the ruins." Yu Changming hurriedly explained. Cultivation world, ruins. Xiao Hua pinched his chin as he thought to himself, since this place isn't one of the 3 continents, nor is it the Daybreak continent, then there must be a problem with this Xiao's transportation channel, causing it to deviate in direction and be transported here. Maybe it's because I've been drifting in the heavenly prison for too long. Even though I've only been in the world's edge for 20,000 years, maybe I've been in the hidden immortal continent for 1,000,000 years. Everything has changed. Of course, Even if millions of years pass and people and things change, the three continents won't change, right? Could it be that even the three continents have changed? If that's the case, then I can only say that I've been transported to the wrong place. But the divine sense mark that I sensed in the heavenly prison was the divine sense mark on the Great Snow Mountain. It was personally marked by me. How did I get transported here? Daoist Master Xiao? Seeing Xiao Hua's strange expression, Yu Mingxin probed, there's an ancient saying that goes with the flow. Since Daoist Master Xiao is already here, why don't you wait and see? Perhaps it won't be long before the transmission array in the ruins is repaired. At that time, it won't be too late for Daoist Master to leave. That's right, that's right. Yu Changming also agreed. Daoist Master Xiao's methods are exceedingly high. Now that my ruins is being attacked by the devil dwellers, if Daoist Master can lend a hand, my Chuan Xiong School, Misty School, and Shendao sect will definitely be endlessly grateful. Misty School? Xiao Hua stared blankly and asked curiously, there's a Misty School in the ruins? That's right. Yu Mingxin felt a bit strange and hurriedly replied, not only is there a Misty School in the ruins, there's also a Shendao sect. That Shendao sect is a branch of the famous Tai Bai sect in the cultivation world. Tai Bai sect? Xiao Hua slightly shook his head, never heard of it. But I've heard of Misty School. Hehe, Daoist Master must be joking. Yu Mingxin pursed her lips and smiled, revealing two small dimples and said, Misty School is a sect in the ruins. Even though it's one of the three major sects in the ruins, how can it be compared to Tai Bai sect? Shendao sect is only a branch of Tai Bai sect, but it can be compared to Misty School. No matter how famous Tai Bai sect is, what does it have to do with me? Xiao Hua smiled, I've never heard of it, so I've never heard of it. Xiao Hua's words caused Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming to stare blankly. After all, even though Xiao Hua's words revealed a kind of arrogance, but, in reality, he was belittling Tai Bai sect. Perhaps brainless people would see Xiao Hua in a new light, but Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming both knew of Tai Bai sect's power, so they could only have doubts in their hearts. The two exchanged glances and Yu Mingxin asked probingly, Daoist Master Xiao, you've really never heard of Tai Bai sect? Indeed, Xiao Hua nodded and asked curiously, could it be that Tai Bai sect is especially famous? Yu Mingxin smiled bitterly and asked again, then, where did Daoist Master Xiao come from? 3 continents. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the two's reaction and replied, you two probably haven't heard of it. Indeed. Yu Mingxin nodded, Junior has indeed never heard of the name of this outside world. Of course, if Senior came from outside the cultivation world, it's normal that you haven't heard of Tai Bai sect. However, Tai Bai sect and Kunlun sect are the two biggest cultivation sects in our cultivation world. Not only do they occupy a star field by themselves, they also spread their power to many star fields. If Senior wants to return to the 3 continents, I'm afraid you'll have to form a good relationship with either Tai Bai sect or Kunlun sect. Kunlun sect? Xiao Hua was startled. He couldn't help but recall that when he was in the Dawn Rain continent, someone once warned him that although the Dawn Rain continent's Kunlun sect wasn't particularly powerful, it was one of the most profound cultivation sects in the Dawn Rain continent. However, thinking about what Yu Mingxin said and the surrounding situation, Xiao Hua also knew that this Kunlun sect was definitely not the same Kunlun sect. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua asked again, outside world? Apart from the cultivation world, what other world do you know? This. Yu Mingxin hesitated for a moment and said with a smile, Junior's cultivation is shallow and the sect has strict orders. Without reaching the void refinement stage, Junior can't get involved in these outside world matters. Junior has only heard some rumors, it can't be considered true. Yu Changming smiled and said, if Daoist Xiao wants to know more, then please follow me back to the Fragrance sect's mountain gate. Junior will ask the sect's senior to clear up your doubts. That's right. Yu Mingxin also echoed, Senior's matter of returning to the 3 continents, I'm afraid only the sect's senior can help. Senior, why don't you follow me back to the mountain gate? Is the Misty School's mountain gate the same as your Fragrance sect's mountain gate? Xiao Hua didn't directly answer, but asked back. Yu Changming didn't dare to hide, he shook his head and said, My fragrant sect's mountain gate is in the 7 mountain range, the Misty School is in Ping River, the distance is very far. Yu Mingxin hurriedly said, Senior, if you want to go to the Misty School, Junior can lead the way for you. Xiao Hua really wanted to go to the Misty School to see if the Misty School was the Misty School in his memory. However, when he heard the names of the 7 mountain range and Ping River, he didn't have any reaction in his mind. Naturally, he also knew that this Misty School might not be the Misty School he was looking for. Moreover, the devil race was currently besieging the ruins. If he rashly went to the Misty School, it might cause some misunderstandings. Therefore, he thought for a moment and said with a smile, now that the devil race is rampant, you might encounter some danger on the way back to the sect. This Xiao will send you back to the 7 mountain range first. Yu Mingxin smiled sweetly and bowed, thank you, Senior. However, in the next moment, her face became sad again. She looked around and said, if only Senior had come earlier. Hearing this, Yu Changming also felt sad. He raised his hand and said, Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior and Junior will clean up these corpses. There is a transmission array of my fragrant religion in the tribute wasteland. Junior will bring Senior there in a moment. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded and looked around. He said, you can clean it up. The dead should be respected. They are disciples of the fragrant religion. They also died in battle to protect the ruins. Their corpses should be brought back. Senior should know. Yu Mingxin explained in a low voice, they are not disciples of the fragrant religion. They are just disciples of other sects who were in the same group as Junior. Then we should bring their corpses back and send them to their sect. Let their souls rest in peace. Xiao Hua sighed. At this moment, Buddha body in the Niwen Palace suddenly said, Tan Yu, there is something strange here. Oh? Xiao Hua was surprised. He waved his hand at Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming, hinting them to clean up the corpses. His figure flashed and he turned into a rainbow and flew into the sky. He then asked, Little monk, what did you find? Tan Yu. Buddha body said, this poor monk found a lot of souls nearby. They seem to be the souls of the cultivators who just died. There are even some who died before. In an ordinary place, souls would immediately enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, these souls seem to be imprisoned here and can't leave. Therefore, a lot of wandering souls have gathered. Hiss. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He slapped his forehead and opened his delirium eyes. Sure enough, on the ground and in the air nearby, there were a few fine green patterns drifting about. They were ownerless wandering souls. These wandering souls were either complete or incomplete. There were more than what Buddha body said. What is going on? These souls can't return to the 9 underworlds. Xiao Hua was a bit confused. He looked at Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming who were focused on cleaning up the corpses. He knew that the two of them knew very little. Even if he asked, they might not know. Chapter 4081. These wandering souls need to be dealt with immediately. Buddha body said, either this poor monk reincarnates them, or Tan Yu takes them into the space. Let this Xiao do it. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, since these wandering souls can't return to the 9 underworlds, even if you use the Buddhist mantra, it might not be effective. The population of our space has reached the limit, we need these wandering souls to replenish it. Namo Metria Buddha. Buddha body chanted and said, let's do as Tan Yu says. Woo! Xiao Hua released his mind and activated the spiritual energy of the underworld. Winds and clouds surged within 10,000 miles, and the wandering souls were all taken into the space by Xiao Hua. Yu Mingxin. Xiao Hua transmitted, wait here for this old man for a moment. Senior. Yu Mingxin looked up in surprise. Seeing Xiao Hua waving his hand, she hurriedly transmitted, there are a lot of tribute wastelands. Unfortunately, before she could finish speaking, Xiao Hua's figure moved slightly, and he'd already vanished from where he stood. Seeing Xiao Hua teleport away, Yu Mingxin's heart felt empty for no reason. However, she shook her head slightly and carefully cleaned up the corpses on the ground. In fact, under normal circumstances, the cultivators of the ruins would use their magic power to store the corpses of the devil cultivator into their Sumeru ring. However, after hearing Xiao Hua's solemn words, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming did not dare to be negligent and personally cleaned them up. After the two finished cleaning up, they looked up at the sky and released their divine sense. Unfortunately, there was no trace of Xiao Hua within 100 kilometers. Yu Changming asked worriedly, "Junior sister, do you think Senior Xiao has left?" Yu Mingxin smiled and replied, "Although this is the first time I saw Senior Xiao, from his words and actions, I feel that he is a trustworthy person. He won't leave without saying goodbye. In fact, the most important thing is that Senior Xiao's spiritual power is unfathomable. If he wants to leave, we can't stop him. Since he promised to go with us to the Seven Ridge Mountains, he will definitely go." "Of course I understand," Yu Changming said with a wry smile. "However, there is nothing special around the tribute wastelands. Why would he go elsewhere? I don't know." Yu Mingxin shrunk his neck slightly, looked at the gradually setting sun, and said, "Senior Xiao wants us to wait, then let's wait." The two of them waited for several hours. Seeing that the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, Xiao Hua appeared in front of them. "Senior." Seeing Xiao Hua's figure appear from the void, Yu Mingxin called out with a smile, "Senior." Yu Changming hastily followed Yu Mingxin and bowed, "Senior is back." Xiao Hua agreed. He raised his head and looked at the unfamiliar star chart in the night sky. Earlier, when the stars were shining, Xiao Hua had already observed it. The star chart here was different from the Morning Rain continent and the Hidden Immortal continent. This ruins was definitely not the Hidden Immortal continent. The time fragment that he was worried about didn't bring him to the Hidden Immortal continent that was very, very far in the future. "Where did Senior go?" Yu Mingxin's bright eyes moved, and said with some concern, "Devil dwellers occasionally appear around the tribute wastelands." Xiao Hua laughed, raised his hand and took out two devil dwellers from the space, and said, "Previously, this old man thought that they were monsters, but after hearing you say that they were devil dwellers, this old man felt very strange. Because these devil dwellers were different from what this old man saw, this old man went to capture a few to see Senior." Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were stunned. There were countless experts in the ruins, and there were also many capable people who could kill devil dwellers. However, to capture devil dwellers as easily as Xiao Hua, there weren't many. At least, the two of them had never seen such a thing. "I'll give them to you." Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the two devil dwellers fell in front of the two of them. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming understood Xiao Hua's intention, and were even more ecstatic. They both stretched out their hand and activated a ring on their finger, collecting the devil dwellers, and then bowed and said, "Many thanks, Senior Xiao." "You're welcome." Xiao Hua looked at the rings on the two's hand, and said with a smile, "Is this a universe ring?" "Oh, this is a Sumeru ring." Yu Mingxin knew that Xiao Hua wasn't a cultivator of the cultivation world, and didn't know that the ring on her hand was a Sumeru ring, so she hurriedly explained. Moreover, she was very lucky and took out a slightly exquisite Sumeru ring from her bosom, and handed it to Xiao Hua, saying, "Senior, this is Junior's Tongxi ring. The space inside is much larger than the Star Lake ring on Junior's hand. If Senior doesn't mind, please kindly accept it." "This." Xiao Hua smiled. His space was now several million miles away, and he didn't know how much larger it was than a Sumeru ring. How could he use a Sumeru ring? He waved his hand and said, "No need, this old man has his own universe ring and other things, I don't need this Sumeru ring." Yu Mingxin didn't take back the Sumeru ring, and still insisted, "Senior saved Junior's life, this Junior has nothing to repay. Just take this Tongxi ring as Junior's thanks." "Haha, good." Xiao Hua saw Yu Mingxin's insistence, and raised his hand to take the Sumeru ring into his bosom. He waved his hand and took out 10 dragon crystals, saying, "This old man doesn't have anything particularly precious, these are dragon crystals. I don't know if the ruins have them, but I'll give them to you as a plaything." The dragon crystal was very strange. In the stacked jade Forgotten Realm, it was a crystal, but in this place, it was shining brightly. Moreover, there was a crystal-clear dragon shape that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the light. What was special was that it was night, so the light was even more obvious. Dragon crystals. Seeing the 10 dragon crystals were like 10 little dragons dancing in the air, Yu Mingxin's eyes immediately lit up. She covered her mouth with her hand in surprise, and said in surprise, This is the legendary dragon crystals of the dragon world. It's really too beautiful. Not to mention Yu Mingxin was surprised, even Yu Changming's eyes were filled with envy. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he asked Yu Changming with a smile, Is the dragon world near the cultivation world? I'll let Senior Xiao know. Yu Changming retracted his gaze and respectfully replied, The dragon world is very far from the cultivation world, and it is said that the barrier between the dragon world and the other worlds is very strange. Besides the dragon race, other races can enter at will. Therefore, the dragon crystals rarely flow out. Xiao Hua frowned, and said, This old man knows of a dragon realm, but I don't know if this dragon world is the dragon realm. This. Yu Changming shook his head awkwardly. This junior doesn't know. This junior has never heard of the dragon realm. He, Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin came back to her senses, and put the 10 dragon crystals into her sumeru ring, and said with a smile, This junior seems to have heard of the dragon realm. Oh, is that so? Xiao Hua was overjoyed, and asked, Tell me about it. This junior. Yu Mingxin looked at Yu Changming, and said with some embarrassment, More than 10 years ago, when I was on duty at the Bright Palace, I occasionally heard the sect master and the other seniors talk about a few words, and there seemed to be a dragon realm inside. Of course, this junior didn't hear it clearly. Maybe the dragon realm and the dragon realm that senior is talking about are not the same. That dragon realm should be one of the lower realms of the dragon world, of course. What the other lower realms are, this junior doesn't know. Sigh. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be shocked. In the eyes of the Dragon Island, the dragon realm is the upper realm, and in the eyes of the dragon world, the dragon realm is the lower realm. What's more, this cultivation world is on the same level as the dragon world. Then, what realm is this cultivation world? Xiao Hua was completely confused. Senior. Yu Mingxin said in a low voice, This is something that this junior occasionally heard, it can't be taken seriously. Moreover, there are countless worlds outside the cultivation world. It's not strange to have 1 or 2 people with the same name. Xiao Hua took a deep breath, and said, Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's go back to the 7 Ridge Mountains first. Yes, Senior. Yu Changming said respectfully, Senior, please follow this junior. Oh, these 2 dragon crystals are also for you. Xiao Hua nodded, and handed the 2 dragon crystals to Yu Changming. Many thanks, Senior. Yu Changming hastily received the dragon crystals, and happily said, then led Xiao Hua to the transmission array. The transmission array of Fragrance Religion was located on top of a mountain peak, and it was only a few dozen li away from here. Xiao Hua had already discovered it when he released his divine sense. Before flying to the mountain peak, Xiao Hua had already learned from Yu Mingxin that the devil race had really set up a trap here. They had killed a group of 10 people, and only Yu Mingxin was left alive, so that the disciples of Fragrance Religion would come to rescue him. Unfortunately, Yu Mingxin had sent a message early, and didn't clearly explain the dangers of this place. When Yu Changming received the message, he anxiously rushed over, and didn't inform his fellow disciples. If it weren't for Xiao Hua accidentally bumping into his transmission channel, not to mention rescuing Yu Mingxin, even Yu Changming himself would have been trapped in this wasteland. Yu Changming took out a long jade pendant from his sumeru ring, which was engraved with ancient symbols. As Yu Changming chanted, the surrounding heaven and earth origin chi gradually gathered. Then, Yu Changming's hands formed a seal, and the jade pendant turned into a fist-sized halo that fell into the array. Boom! The array was activated, and a burst of light and shadow flashed, like a blooming daisy, and 100 jong-wide transmission array appeared in front of Xiao Hua and the others, exuding obscure fluctuations. Xiao Hua had been paying attention to Yu Changming's spellcasting, and saw that the magic power fluctuations were similar to what he knew, but the spellcasting was completely different. Of course, the power of this spell seemed to be stronger than that of the Dawn Rain continent. Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin saw the transmission array appear and said with a smile, if Daoist Xiao hadn't mistakenly entered Senior Brother Changming's transmission channel, Senior Brother Changming should have come out from here. Didn't this Xiao come here to save you? Xiao Hua blinked his eyes and looked at Yu Mingxin. He didn't know if it was intentional or not, but he replied with a smile, if this Xiao fell here, wouldn't there be no way to save you? Chapter 4082. He, that's right. Yu Mingxin smiled faintly and was about to say something when the moonlight in the sky suddenly shone brightly. An extremely obscure and broad wave of energy swept across the night sky. In the air, an inexplicable cloud appeared, and the originally dense heaven and earth Yuan Qi became even denser. At this time, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's faces turned serious. They stopped activating the teleportation formation and put their hands in front of their chest to greet the moon. When Xiao Hua saw the two acting so respectfully and the strange movements of their hands, he knew that this was some kind of ritual. Hence, his figure flashed and retreated several dozen feet. When the fluctuation fell on Xiao Hua's body, the spirit of the formless nascent soul shook. The cultivation art in his body was activated and the nebula-like core was immediately filled with bright moonlight. Oh! Xiao Hua frowned. He was a little surprised and a little happy. After the time it took to finish a meal, the two of them stood up. Yu Changming went to activate the teleportation formation while Yu Mingxin said with a smile, "I'll let you know that this is the moon sacrifice of our ruins. Normally, it happens once a month. However, there are some abnormalities with the invasion of the devil race. Sometimes it takes half a month, sometimes it takes 2 months. What is moon sacrifice?" Xiao Hua looked at Yu Changming carefully, taking out the origin stones and putting them on the teleportation formation. His movements were jerky and he knew that activating the teleportation formation would take some time. Seeing that Xiao Hua didn't have any reaction to the moon, Yu Mingxin naturally knew that Xiao Hua didn't know what moon sacrifice was. However, she still probed, "There is a moon palace in the moon god realm. Everything in the moon god realm, including the heaven and earth origin energy, is bestowed by the moon palace. The people of the moon god realm naturally have to worship the moon palace. Could it be that spiritual master Xiao's 3 continents don't worship the moon palace?" Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and replied, "Although our 3 continents have moon essence, I have never heard of the moon god realm. Spiritual master Xiao, could it be that you came from outside the realm?" Yu Mingxin was a little dumbfounded. This junior has never heard of the realm outside the moon palace, even if there are other realms nearby. Speaking until here, Yu Mingxin was shocked. She looked at Yu Changming, who was setting up the teleportation formation, and hurriedly sent a sound transmission. "Senior Xiao, you better not say that you came from outside the realm. Also, don't say that you don't know of the moon god realm." "Why?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Yu Mingxin bit her lips slightly as she sent a sound transmission to Yun Che. "Senior, please know that the moon god realm is commonly known as the cultivation world in the mouths of us disciples. In my moon god realm, all cultivators must worship the moon palace. The purpose of this junior's cultivation is also to enter the moon palace. Anyone who doesn't respect the moon palace will be seen as an alien, just like the devil race. Senior, you are a kind person. Although you don't know about the moon palace, you are still part of our Dao sect. Therefore, it is best to avoid any misunderstandings." Sigh. Xiao Hua couldn't remember how many times he had sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, when he was doubtful, he faintly felt that something was wrong, but at that time, he didn't know what it was. Only now did he realize it. The Daoist cultivators of the hidden immortal continent ascended to the immortal world. The dragons of the Dragon Island broke through the void and arrived at the Dragon Field. If this world of cultivation was higher than the Dragon Field, then, how could these Daoist cultivators ascend? Where are they going? Now, Yu Mingxin said what Xiao Hua wanted to know. The Moon Palace was actually the place where the cultivators of the cultivation world, the ruins, ascended. This was definitely a subversion of Xiao Hua's understanding. Sigh. Just as Xiao Hua was about to open his mouth again, Yu Mingxin raised his eyes to look at the moon and said with a sorrowful tone, "It's a pity that our ruins is a remote corner of the cultivation world. It has already been a long time since the Moon Palace's emissary came to select disciples. In these millions of years, many seniors went to other places and many sects were destroyed. Otherwise, when the devil race invaded, we wouldn't have fallen into such a sorry state." Xiao Hua somewhat understood. Perhaps there was a convenient way to reach the Moon Palace in the cultivation world. However, this way was man-made. If no one came to select disciples, this way would be closed. It was not as good as the hidden immortal continent. As long as one cultivated, as long as one had enough strength, they would be able to ascend. There was no need to look at the faces of those people, nor did they need to rely on the charity of others. Senior. Yu Changming had already finished setting up the transfer array. He flew over and said respectfully, "The transfer array is ready. Senior, please enter the transfer array. Junior will activate the array." Xiao Hua nodded and entered the teleportation array. After that, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming chanted incantations at the same time and formed hand seals. A fist-sized rune appeared in the teleportation array and a black and white pillar of light shot up into the sky. The three of them disappeared from the teleportation array, leaving behind only the light of the teleportation array. Then, the teleportation array slowly came to a stop. Inside the transfer array, the spatial pressure was very strong. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's body flashed with a faint brilliance, blocking the pressure. The three figures in the transfer array were slightly distorted. Xiao Hua tried to open his mouth, but his voice seemed to be dragged out. It was somewhat similar to the heavenly prison. After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua felt the pressure on his body gradually lessen. He knew that the transfer array was about to end. He didn't ask how far the wasteland was from the fragrance cult, but it definitely didn't seem close. Boom! Just as the three figures became clear, the entire transfer array suddenly trembled. Then, the rotating black and white brilliance suddenly exploded. Yu Changming was shocked. When the brilliance cracked, a strong black flame rushed out from the crack. Then, a black devil claw stretched out. The devil claw was 10 feet long and had 6 pitch-black fingers. Each finger was wrapped in black flames and each finger had a strange innate devil pattern. When the devil claw reached out, the space around Yu Changming was enveloped by the black flames. He couldn't use his magic power at all. Even under Yu Changming's robe, a faint yellow brilliance flashed. Then, there was a burst of sound. It seemed like his personal defensive treasure was broken. Yu Changming's complexion changed. Ka. At this critical moment, an iron rod blocked the devil claw. The huge force not only dispersed the black flames but also crushed the 2 fingers of the devil claw. Ao! A clear roar came from outside the transfer array. It faintly entered Yu Changming's ears. Then, the devil claw suddenly retracted. But when it retracted to the edge of the transfer array, another devil claw fell down. Rumble. It sounded like a boulder rolling down the mountain. The transfer array was actually torn apart by the devil claw. Xiao Hua and the others felt the space around them shake. The black and white brilliance disappeared and the transfer array also turned into fragments. Xiao Hua felt a little dizzy, but at this moment, he could clearly see that because of the sneak attack of the devils, they weren't sent to the real transfer array. At this time, the 3 of them were in mid-air. In addition to the 3 of them, there was another demon in the air that looked similar to the one they had killed in the wasteland. However, this demon was several times larger than the one they had killed in the wasteland. Moreover, this demon looked somewhat similar to the human race. When he looked around again, he saw balls of black and white light emerging in midair. Daoist cultivators either escaped from the light or had their limbs severed. Around the black and white light, there were 1 or 2 devils spreading their pitch-black wings. Their fiendish claws that flickered with black flames were plunged into the light. Not only that, in midair, there was a huge lotus-like mountain. In the middle of the mountain, there was a huge transfer array. Around the mountain, there were dozens of smaller transfer arrays. At this time, the transfer arrays were slightly rotating and issuing a rumbling sound. Around the transfer array, there were hundreds of cultivators of the Dao sect. Each of them was holding a magic weapon and fighting against the devils. The devils outnumbered the humans and their methods were much more cruel. The whole mountain was filled with blood qi and shouts of killing shook the sky. Roar! Just as Xiao Hua saw everything in front of him, the devil in front of them roared angrily. Black flames madly rushed out of its wings. The flame threads in the black flames passed through the void and completely enveloped Xiao Hua and the other 2. It was like a kind of domain power that imprisoned the space. Oh! It's a little strange. Xiao Hua had cultivated the devil arts of the blood drop paradise. Naturally, He was very familiar with the cultivation methods of the devil race. However, seeing the somewhat mutated black flames and the formidable power of the black flames, he was slightly startled. Under the black flames, not to mention Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming, even Xiao Hua's true essence was forcibly imprisoned. He couldn't activate it at all. Moreover, just as this imprisonment was formed, the devil swung its tail. An incomparably sharp spike with the smell of blood unexpectedly emerged from the void behind Xiao Hua and strangely pierced towards the back of Xiao Hua's head. Xiao Hua muttered in his heart. He heard Yu Mingxin's miserable cry, "Daoist Xiao, be careful." Xiao Hua slightly turned his head and said with a smile, "Miss Mingxin, don't be afraid. I am here." Seeing Xiao Hua's smile, Yu Mingxin's heart relaxed for no reason. Looking at Xiao Hua again, as he spoke, several thumb-sized thunderbolts emerged from his hand and struck the devil's tail. Lightning flickered and the spike was unexpectedly torn apart. Even the lightning didn't stop and rushed towards the void. Wherever the lightning passed, the void was also torn apart. Previously in the transfer array, Xiao Hua didn't dare to use the lightning technique for fear of destroying the transfer array. But in midair, Xiao Hua naturally didn't have any more taboos. Puff! Xiao Hua opened his mouth again, and a light purple lightning arc quickly rushed out and landed on the devil's heart. The devil looked down at his heart with some disbelief. That place was originally engraved with devil patterns, and ordinary magic treasures couldn't break it. And now, a fist-sized hole had appeared in that supposedly indestructible place. The edges of this hole were still flickering with strands of lightning. Boom! Just at this moment, a low explosive sound came from within the devil's body. The devil's heart was killed by Xiao Hua. The devil slightly raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. Then, the black flames were annihilated, and the devil's body fell from the sky. Chapter 4083. Woo! Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't let the devil's body fall here. With a sweep of his mind, the devil's corpse was already stored in his space. Daoist Xiao. Seeing Xiao Hua easily killing the devil, Yu Mingxin hastily called out from the side, "Quickly, this is one of the 9 transfer centers of the ruins. There are many transfer channels converging here. If the devil race occupies this place, not only will many transfer channels be cut off, there will also be many fellow Taoists who will fly like moths to a flame and fall into the devil race's trap." Xiao Hua nodded and replied, "The two of you will lead the way for this old man. Wherever this old man needs help, bring this old man there. After that, the two of you will gather the disciples this old man rescued and rise up to resist the devil race." Yes. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were very familiar with this transfer center. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, they immediately brought Xiao Hua to the center of the transfer array. However, before Xiao Hua could get close, rumble. The sound of explosions came from the distance of the transfer array. The light of the transfer array was also extremely bright. Soon after, the rumbling sound of the transfer array disappeared. "Not good," Yu Mingxin said anxiously. "The transfer array was destroyed by the devil race. How are we going to return to the sect?" "Quickly," Yu Changming urged, "Daoist Xiao, let's save the other transfer arrays." After saying that, Yu Changming brought Xiao Hua to fly to the nearest transfer array. Xiao Hua patted his forehead with one hand and opened his illusion breaker eye. After quickly looking around, he shook his head slightly. These devils are proficient in the Tao of space. They have already started from the transfer channel and destroyed the transfer array from the inside to the outside. We are half a step late. I'm afraid this transfer array will be destroyed. What should we do? Yu Changming was somewhat anxious. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked around. After a slight estimation, he said, "Don't worry. Let's first drive the devil race away. We will slowly repair these transfer arrays." Just as Xiao Hua's words landed, a human-shaped devil flew out from the central transmission array and rushed towards Xiao Hua not far away. Thin black flames were surging all over this humanoid devilish being's body, making it appear as if it were wearing a set of clothes. Furthermore, this devilish being's facial features were far more pleasing to the eye than the previous devilish being. Aside from the addition of a crimson horn that was over 3 inches long on its forehead, It appeared to be quite similar to an ordinary human being. Before the devil landed, he immediately shouted arrogantly, "Where did this Daoist cultivator come from? How dare you have designs on this old man? Ha ha, the demon race has learned the etiquette of our human race? You call yourself an old man?" Xiao Hua sneered and waved his hands. Two sword-like thunderbolts appeared out of thin air and pierced towards the chest of the demon. Damn it! The demon cursed in a low voice and released the aura of the demon race from his body. He raised his hand and took out a long spear from who knows where. One of his hands waved the long spear towards Xiao Hua, while the other hand waved and 100 feet long devil fire rushed towards the thunderbolt. Hong long long. The thunderbolts were originally condensed like swords. As soon as they touched the devil fire, the thunderbolts immediately turned into the shape of a horned dragon and rushed towards the devil fire. A huge explosion sounded, and the overwhelming might of the heavens and earth rumbled within 100 feet. The devil fire was instantly extinguished by the thunderbolts. Keng! At the same time, another loud noise sounded. Xiao Hua waved his hand and the wishful steel staff appeared out of thin air and hit the devil's spear. In an instant, the devil's spear was sent flying. The devil looked at Xiao Hua with some disbelief, as if he had never thought that a human race cultivator could be so fierce. Woo! With a muffled sound, Xiao Hua's divine will hammer was born again and smashed towards the devil. The demon was scared out of his wits as he looked at the invisible divine sense that was falling from the sky like a meteor. Crimson-red light rushed out of his body, and the horn on his forehead suddenly released a fist-sized light shadow. The light shadow trembled and rushed into the sky like a demon. Every time the light shadow flew an inch, the space collapsed, and blood-red liquid seeped out of the cracks in space. A fishy smell that could corrode everything spread out from the light shadow. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the divine will hammer fell and hit the shadow. The devil was instantly smashed into thousands of fireflies. Under the strong wind, the fireflies had just turned into a smaller devil and had just let out a horrifying smile in the air when they were immediately crushed by the strong wind. What was special was that the divine will hammer didn't slow down after destroying the shadow. It still carried the power of 1,000 katis and still rushed towards the devil. The devil spread his devil wings and just disappeared into the void. The divine will hammer fell and smashed on one of the devil's wings. Zilolo! Like water falling into a pot of oil, the divine will hammer was corroded at the same time, and the devil's wing was also destroyed by the divine will hammer. Ah! The devil once again let out a heart-wrenching roar. His whole devil body surged with devil flames and was about to disappear into the void. At this time, a 3-inch-long lightning thread was spat out from Xiao Hua's mouth. Shua! The lightning thread flashed and immediately disappeared. Then, the space between Xiao Hua and the devil rumbled like a drum. The devil's body that had disappeared appeared again. The devil looked around in disbelief, and his blood-red eyes were filled with fear. Crack! What was even more bizarre was that the devilish body of the devilish being suddenly cracked. Then, as if it was made of glass, the devilish being shattered into pieces. Within the pieces of solidified devilish flames, there were still streaks of lightning flashing like cobwebs. This is a bit strange. Seeing that his lightning technique was so powerful, even Xiao Hua was a bit surprised. Although he was now at the Grand Ascension stage and his strength was comparable to that of a tribulation-transcending stage cultivator, it was still far beyond Xiao Hua's expectations that his lightning technique would be so perfect. After Xiao Hua killed this demon general, he finally attracted the attention of the other demon generals. Near the center of the teleportation formation, a series of ghostly wails and howls suddenly sounded. Several demon generals surged with demon chi and joined hands to activate a bloody light. From below the teleportation formation, they surged towards Xiao Hua like raging wave. Chemph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted and slapped the top of his head. Pfff! A burst of 5-colored chi more ferocious than a volcanic eruption rushed into the air. Then, accompanied by an oppressive pressure, it spread in all directions. Rumble! Wherever the 5-colored chi passed, all of the blood-red light was destroyed. All of the devil flames were also extinguished. Even the devil chi around the devil generals was thinned by this unparalleled and overwhelming aura. The originally arrogant devils in the devil chi all shrunk their necks and hid in the devil chi. What kind of divine ability is this? Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were already full of admiration for Xiao Hua. At this time, when they saw the chi of a refined void stage cultivator, they were even more shocked. In their perception, this chi of a refined void stage cultivator was incomparably firm and sharp. It was the natural enemy of devil chi. Not only that, but when they looked at Xiao Hua again, he rubbed his hands again and again, and several thumb-sized crystal lights fell into the air. Hundreds of fluctuations were generated from his body and quickly rippled out to 1,000 miles away. Rumble. Countless lightning flashed and thunder roared in the void. All of the teleportation formations on the mountain peak were covered by these lightning bolts. An unparalleled mountain pressure was generated around Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming. The two of them found it difficult to even breathe, let alone use their true essence. Domain, such a large domain. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming didn't know how to hide the shock in their heart. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, the sound of explosions came from the various teleportation formations. One by one, the weaker devils were killed by Xiao Hua's lightning power. At the same time, the equally powerful devils abandoned the human cultivators that were attacking them and appeared from the void. They used their divine abilities to destroy Xiao Hua's domain. Keng! Xiao Hua slightly raised his hand, and 9 sword chi appeared out of thin air. The sword chi was as strong as the rising sun, and with a wave of Xiao Hua's hand, it fell on the 2 devils closest to Xiao Hua. One of the 2 devils was holding a devil hammer in his hand, and the other was holding a black short spear. Half of their bodies fell into the void. They seemed to want to escape, but under Xiao Hua's domain, neither of them could escape into the void. The 2 devils had no choice but to stimulate their devil chi. Their bodies expanded like black smoke, and at the same time, they faced the flying sword chi. Ka! With a soft sound, the sword chi fell without a trace. The 2 seemingly indestructible devil tools were split in half by the sword chi. Moreover, the sword chi didn't stop. It flew towards a tall devil general several li away. Seeing the sword chi fly half a li away, the devil horns on the 2 devil generals' foreheads emitted a faint blood-red light. Then, a faint blood-red light rushed out of the devil horns, and the devil horns were split in half. At the same time, the bodies of the 2 devil generals were neatly split in half, and they fell from the sky with a loud bang. Ka! Similarly, the devil general several li away wasn't Xiao Hua's opponent. When his devil tool was split in half, his body was also split in half. Senior martial brother. Yu Mingxin's eyes curved into bright moons. She looked at Yu Changming with some pride and whispered, Senior Xiao might be a great expert of the 5th stage of the Dao transformation realm. An outer realm cultivator we casually picked up actually has such a powerful divine ability. Hey, that's right. Yu Changming touched his face and said with a smile, not long ago, this Dao transformation senior actually stepped on me and apologized to me. My heart is drunk. That's right. Yu Mingxin agreed. It's rare for Senior Xiao to be so approachable with such a profound cultivation. If he didn't reveal such a method, I would have thought he was just a void refinement realm cultivator. Indeed. Yu Changming prostrated himself in admiration. Senior Xiao's method is brilliant, but the most important thing is his bearing. This is the first time I've seen someone like him. This bearing is like an unattainable mountain, but also like the sun and the spring breeze, making people feel comfortable. I don't know how to describe it. This kind of person is an outstanding person. Even the leader of the Moon Palace can't compare to him, right? Yu Mingxin's eyes revealed a trace of strangeness. Chapter 4084. While Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming were praising Xiao Hua's sword had already swept through several teleportation arrays and killed dozens of demon generals under his flying sword. At the same time, from these teleportation arrays, hundreds of Dao sect disciples also flew out with difficulty. They looked at Xiao Hua with longing as he killed the demon generals like cutting melons and vegetables. Damn it, Mahayana cultivation. No. The strength of the 9th level of Essence Chi is really not to be trifled with. Xiao Hua's hands were a little soft. Although these demon generals had strange figures and could freely travel through the void, in front of him, this method was not worth mentioning. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to save the Dao sect disciples in the teleportation arrays, he would be too lazy to kill them. How about, I let Liu Yi and the others out to practice? However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately extinguished it. After all, he still did not know what kind of realm the ruins was. The information he got from Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming was far from enough to let him see the true appearance of the ruins. He could not let his disciples take too much risk. Within the space controlled by Xiao Hua within 1,000 miles, nearly half of the teleportation arrays had been cleared, and more disciples of the Dao sect were flying out. Boom boom boom. More than a dozen explosions were heard near Xiao Hua, but at the location of these explosions, more than a dozen demon monarchs that were at least 100 feet in size appeared with sinister smiles on their faces. These dozens of demon monarchs had strange fluctuations around their bodies, and the entire space trembled with these fluctuations, resisting the power of Xiao Hua's domain. Moreover, although these dozens of demon monarchs had huge figures, except for the faint demon runes around their bodies, they did not look any different from humans. Some of them even looked quite handsome. I wanted to lure a few void refining brats to have a taste. Who knew that it would actually attract an elder of the three sect? One of the demon monarchs tore Xiao Hua's domain with his hand and looked at Xiao Hua's flying sword with a smile. Look at the sharpness of this flying sword. If this demon monarch is not wrong, this should be the Tai Bai sect's flying sword technique. The other demon monarch nodded and said, the true qi that killed the demon general was similar to the Xiantian true qi of the Tai Bai sect. This human must be an elder of the Shundao sect. This matter is a little troublesome. The demon monarch, who was the furthest away from Xiao Hua, held a huge magic wand in his hand and stepped on a demonic beast. However, he shook his head and said, the Shundao sect's elder is too ruthless. His cultivation level should be above the third stage Dao transformation realm. We might not be his match. Now that things have come to this, do we still have a choice? A demon general sneered. The demon horn on his forehead turned blood red. At the same time, he opened his mouth and a river of demon water gushed out. This demonic water did not directly rush towards Xiao Hua. Instead, it spread towards the other demon generals. Indeed. The demon monarch, who was the first to speak, nodded. Being able to kill an elder of the Shundao sect is also a great contribution to us. When the time comes, the demon emperor will definitely reward us. Even if we can't kill him, he definitely won't be able to stop us from escaping. Such a good thing, why not? Kill him. The demon monarchs seemed to ignore Xiao Hua's invincible methods. After a short discussion, they spoke in unison. Rivers of blood gushed out, and the demon monarchs also disrupted Xiao Hua's domain. Then, layers of spatial ripples rose up within 1,000 miles. Under the gaze of Yu Mingxin and the other Dao sect cultivators, Xiao Hua, the demon monarchs, and the demon generals who hurriedly flew out of the teleportation array disappeared into the void. Not good. Yu Mingxin saw this and his expression changed greatly. He said in alarm, this is the demon race's spatial teleportation technique. Senior Xiao is a human. In this space, he definitely won't be able to withstand the demon race's innate divine ability. Senior martial brother, yes. How can we help Senior Xiao? Yu Changming was also at his wit's end. Following Xiao Hua's disappearance, the domain that enveloped the entire space also disappeared. The Dao sect cultivators were all able to move. They were all overjoyed to see that they had escaped from death's door. The ones who disappeared before were all powerful demons. Now, although there were still some demon generals and demon soldiers killing humans in these teleportation arrays, these demons were no longer a threat. Some Dao sect cultivators organized themselves and headed towards these teleportation arrays to kill the demons. At the same time, some cultivators flew into the sky. Senior martial brother Yu. Several fragrance cult disciples called out. Who was that senior just now? This little brother doesn't seem to have seen him in the sect before. Senior martial brothers. Yu Mingxin shouted, this senior is called Xiao Hua, Daoist Master Xiao. He is an outer realm cultivator. Because the demon race besieged our ruins, He mistakenly entered the ruins during the teleportation process. He doesn't know much about the demon race. Now, he even fell into the demon race's void demon formation. We have to quickly think of a way. Isn't Daoist Master Xiao a senior of our white sect? A disciple of the Godly Knife School flew in the air and shouted, "That old man's flying sword looks very similar to our Tai Bai School's Heaven Shocking Sword. It doesn't matter whether he is a senior of the white sect or not." Yu Mingxin said unhappily, "Right now, we have to help Daoist Master Xiao get out of the demon formation. Those are 18 demon monarchs. Even if he is a senior of the white sect, it is inevitable that he will suffer losses in there." The Shindao sect disciple stopped there awkwardly. He bit his lips and frowned. Then, he said in a low voice, But that demon formation was set up by more than 10 demon monarchs. How can we help Daoist Master Xiao? Is there a disciple of the Misty School here?" Yu Mingxin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly called out, "I am from the Misty School." A handsome male disciple in the distance hurriedly raised his hand and answered, "Junior Martial Sister." Yu Changming seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise, "You, what are you going to do?" "Of course, I am going to ask the Moon Beast to help us." Yu Mingxin answered calmly, her eyes filled with determination. Are you crazy?" Yu Changming said anxiously, "If it were any other time, we would have asked the Moon Beast to come down to the mortal world. But now, the demon race has joined forces to seal the area around the ancient ruins. Let alone 10 years, even 100 years is not enough to break this seal. Also, if the Moon Beast is useful, the sect leaders would have asked it to come down to the mortal world. Why would they fight so hard against the demon race?" "Of course, I am not crazy," Yu Mingxin said with a smile. "My life was saved by Daoist Master Xiao. How can I watch Daoist Master Xiao get trapped by the demon monarchs? I don't know if the Moon Beast is useful or not, but this is the only thing I can do for Daoist Master Xiao." Then, Yu Mingxin turned around and looked at the disciples of various sects who were rushing toward them. She said anxiously, "Daoist Master Xiao killed a group of demon generals and saved us. How can we be so ungrateful and not save our benefactor when he is in a sea of fire? Senior martial brothers, I don't need you to waste your lifespan. I only need you to take out some of your blood essence and offer it to the Moon Beast. I will provide all the lifespan essence." "Okay." A few Dao sect disciples who were excited shouted, "Junior Martial Sister Yu is the first to bear the brunt. If you do not have enough lifespan essence, you can retreat. We are willing to sacrifice 10 years of our lifespan for Daoist Master Xiao." "Okay, if that's the case, we will sacrifice the Moon Beast immediately." Yu Mingxin was overjoyed when she saw this. She knelt down in midair and recited the incantation. A devout power of vow was emitted from her body. At the same time, the rest of the disciples held their Dharma treasures and stood guard around them. Some of them knelt down in midair as well. There were thousands of them. Everyone was reciting the incantation. Streams of power of vow rushed up to the sky and gathered together. However, although the power of vow was rolling around in midair, it did not rush up to the sky. After a few minutes, Yu Mingxin's face was filled with sincerity. She recited, "Moon Beast, O Moon Beast, I, Yu Mingxin, am praying in the lower realm. Please save Daoist Master Xiao Hua, Xiao Zhenren, from the hands of the demon clan. I am willing to sacrifice 10 years of my life to Lord Moon Beast." As she was speaking, Yu Mingxin opened her mouth and a drop of blood essence fell into midair. Then, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and a faint golden light appeared on her index finger. As Yu Mingxin drew a strange rune in midair, the blood essence vibrated slowly. Waves of energy rushed into the power of vow in midair. Quick! After a while, Yu Mingxin raised her hand and touched the blood essence. Puff! An even stronger wave came out from the blood essence and rushed up to the sky like a flying sword. Pa! With a light sound, Yu Mingxin turned her hand and the blood essence fell between her eyebrows. Wang! Yu Mingxin's body suddenly let out a rumbling sound similar to that of a Dharma treasure. 10 waves of energy rushed out from between her eyebrows together with the rumbling sound. The waves fell into the power of vow from before. The power of vow turned into a beast shape and rushed up to the sky. However, The beast shape only rushed out for 100 miles before it was blocked by a huge restriction. It could not rise any higher. Even the faint outline of the moon in the sky did not have any reaction. Yu Mingxin narrowed her eyes. Without hesitation, she spat out another mouthful of blood essence and cast the spell again. Thousands of Dao sect disciples were also reciting the incantation. An even stronger power of vow rushed out. The ruins had been surrounded by the devil race for a long time. Yu Mingxin was only a god refinement cultivator. Even if she used her life essence to cast the secret technique of the cultivation world, it was impossible for her to break through the devil race's formation. After 10 times, wrinkles appeared on Yu Mingxin's face. The power of vow from the blood essence only rushed up to a few hundred miles in the sky. Although Yu Mingxin could not see the power of vow, she could clearly feel that there was an iron wall in the sky that blocked her power of vow. Lord Moon Beast. Yu Mingxin raised her hand and poked her finger into her heart. Hot blood gushed out. Junior sister. Yu Changming was so distressed that he almost cried. He knew that this poke might not be able to take Yu Mingxin's life. However, Yu Mingxin would lose more than just her lifespan. As expected, after hot blood gushed out, Yu Mingxin cast the secret technique of sacrifice again. Yu Mingxin's face quickly withered and her hair turned white instantly. Yu Mingxin wailed, "Lord Moon Beast, I am willing to sacrifice my life to invite Lord Moon Beast to come to the mortal world. Spiritual Master Xiao, please save my life. I am willing to exchange my life for yours." Chapter 4085. Following Yu Mingxin's words, the outline of the bright moon in the sky suddenly became clear. An indescribable fluctuation transcended the distance of space and suddenly fell into the power of hope of thousands of disciples. Whoosh! Like a golden dragon breaking through the chains, Yu Mingxin's essence blood rushed into the sky along with a large amount of power of hope, breaking through the sky at the place where the fluctuation fell. Woo woo! In just a few breaths, the place where the moon palace's fluctuation fell, the space began to distort intensely. An extremely vast and sacred aura poured out from the crack in space. Yu Mingxin's wrinkled face was filled with ecstasy. The other disciples were also ecstatic, and devoutly knelt down again. As for Xiao Hua, he saw the bloody space mixed with the strange fluctuation quickly enveloping him. Moreover, a kind of spatial force was born from the fluctuation, as if a dozen forces were dragging him into the void. Although Xiao Hua had the ability to resist this force, looking at the vague smile of the demon monarch behind the bloody mist, Xiao Hua sneered even more. He simply gave up resisting, and his figure disappeared into the void along with the fluctuation. Xiao Hua had just returned from the void. Why would he be afraid of fighting the demon race in the void? When Xiao Hua's figure landed, he took a closer look. This void was different from the previous void. It was suffused with a strange blood-red color. Xiao Hua scanned it with his divine sense and immediately understood that this was a void boundary similar to the one in the blood drop paradise. The blood-red fog rapidly corroded Xiao Hua's divine sense. However, Xiao Hua's divine sense was as tough as steel. The moment it came into contact with the blood-red fog, it immediately retreated. The blood-red space did not affect his divine sense at all. Ha ha! Several wild laughter came from the edge of the bloody space. The 6 demon monarchs in the shape of 6 stars revealed their demon bodies amidst their laughter. The demon monarchs' demon bodies were several hundred zhong in size, and the black flames and bloody light on them condensed into strange demon patterns. Each demon pattern was like a small world, and inside it was filled with roars, blood, hatred, and other negative emotions. Xiao Hua was not in a hurry to attack. He only released his domain to protect himself within 100 zhong. He calmly looked at the numerous demon monarchs and secretly laughed in his heart. Damn, these demon monarchs are really different from the demon generals I saw in the Dawn Rain continent. Moreover, this demon race's technique is also higher level than the blood drop paradise. My devil body has already completed the blood drop grotto heaven, and there are no other techniques for further cultivation. Now that I have come here by chance, although I have yet to figure out what kind of world the ruins is in, this technique is the real deal. There are more than 10 demon monarchs in the void, and other demon generals. They should have techniques of the demon race, right? This Xiao only needs one technique. Even if this Xiao can't cultivate this technique, When I see second senior brother in the future, he can still use it. Haha, these stupid pigs. How could the demon monarch, who was despised by Xiao Hua as a stupid pig, know of Xiao Hua's wishful thinking? Seeing Xiao Hua standing there in a daze, he couldn't help but laugh out loud again and shouted, "Ha ha ha, you human, obediently become this demon monarch's blood food. If this demon monarch is happy, I can even release your soul and let you fall into the netherworld to start anew. Otherwise, I will let you be like those wandering souls, unable to reincarnate for thousands of years." While speaking, that demon monarch seemed to be demonstrating his power. He waved his hand in the air, and a pitch-black banner was taken out. On the banner, numerous bloodlights surged, and countless wandering souls were shouting. There was even a soul that was emitting golden light that was about to fly out from the banner. Damn it! The devil monarch was unable to control the devil banner and spat out a mouthful of devil blood onto the golden soul. Ah! The golden soul roared as it covered its head and rolled around in the air. Devil chi flew out from the banner and pulled the soul into it. In just a few breaths of time, wong, 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 the sound of an army galloping could be heard. That golden soul turned into a valiant general riding on a jet-black demonic beast. It stepped out of the void, and the halberd in the soul's hand gave off an indescribable fluctuation. It actually made Xiao Hua's hair stand on end. How can you make the first move? Another demon monarch beside the demon monarch was anxious. Didn't we agree to attack together? As he spoke, the devil monarch hastily raised his hand and clapped. A pitch-black brilliance frantically flew out from the top of his head. That brilliance transformed into an image that was exactly the same as the devil monarch in midair. His hand was actually holding a devil sword like a Dao sect cultivator, and he stabbed it towards Xiao Hua. In this blood-colored space, under the thrust of the demon sword, the previous violent wave immediately fell in front of Xiao Hua's domain in a few breaths. Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed, and patted his head. Demon brothers, don't be anxious. Come one by one, this little one has a considerate service here that will satisfy you. Boom! But at the top of Xiao Hua's head, a 9-colored Buddhist light gushed out, and Buddha body's 8-foot golden body appeared along with the Buddhist light. The moment body appeared, the Buddhist light immediately tore the blood-colored space to a size of 100 jong. Wherever the Buddhist light went, all the blood color disappeared, and all the space collapsed. Namo Mettria Buddha. Body chanted the name of Buddha, and said, "Before Buddha, a seed of karma, today it bears fruit." The Sarira is the spirit, and body has achieved the golden body. As body's voice fell, his hands formed a Buddhist seal, and the power of mountains, like a heavenly dragon roaring, rushed towards the demon monarch's sword light, and the power of karma, like a sea of blood, rushed towards the demon banner's soul. This is the Buddha kingdom golden body. The two demon monarchs were shocked. How could he appear here? However, after being surprised, extreme greed appeared in the eyes of the two demon monarchs. One of the demon monarchs shouted, "Everyone, this Buddha kingdom golden body belongs to us. No one can snatch it from us." While speaking, the two demon monarchs not only activated their demon weapons, but also stepped on demon flames, and personally rushed over, as if this body was a great tonic. Damn it! The third demon monarch shouted, "Why didn't I make the first move? Haha, then I'll take this human elder as my food." Following this demon monarch's roar, another demon monarch beside him also shouted, "How can you be his opponent? I'll help you. We'll share it together." Roar! The third demon monarch stepped on a demon beast that was at least 1,000 jong long. The demon beast spat out demon flames from its mouth, and on its wings, there were thousands of jong of demon flames that rushed towards Xiao Hua. The fourth demon monarch waved his hand, and tens of thousands of tentacles quickly spread in the blood-colored space, attacking Xiao Hua faster than the demon flames. Didn't this Xiao say? One by one, not a single one will be left out. Xiao Hua smiled proudly, but he didn't activate his divine ability. Instead, he flipped his palm and landed on the top of his head. Boom! Another 5-colored light gushed out, and a Xiao Hua wearing a scholar's robe rushed out while stepping on a 5-colored auspicious cloud with his hands behind his back. The scholar cultivator Xiao Hua landed in the air, and the aura surging around him was also the nemesis of the demon chi. Wherever the multicolored light and auspicious cloud touched, the blood-colored space melted, and waves of whales came out from the blood-colored space. Thousands of demons were killed by this multicolored light. The scholar cultivator Xiao Hua sang, 5 qis unifying as my earth, 3 flowers gathering as my sky, Xiantian true qi as my body, Civil Star Lord as my name. As the scholar cultivator Xiao Hua waved his hand, 2 sword lights soared into the sky, respectively tearing the blood-colored space apart, and rushed towards the 2 demon monarchs fiercely rushing towards her. This. The 5th demon monarch looked at the 6th demon monarch, who was also surprised, and said with some disbelief, "This human cultivator, how many primordial spirits did he cultivate? Could it be that he has already surpassed the Tao transformation realm of the cultivation world? How is that possible?" The 6th demon monarch sneered, if he had surpassed the Tao transformation realm, he would have already entered the Moon Palace. Why would he need to suffer here? Damn it, everyone, take your time. I want to see how many primordial spirits this little Shandao sect elder has cultivated. While speaking, the 2 demon monarchs also activated their divine abilities. One transformed into 1,000 feet tall demon and rushed down, while the other's demon body disappeared and turned into hundreds of millions of demons, rushing towards Xiao Hua like a flood. That's all. Xiao Hua was extremely calm, and once again patted his head. Boom! A pure dragon chi soared into the sky, and a 5-clawed golden dragon with supreme auspicious light surging around it flew out. As soon as the 5-clawed golden dragon appeared, streams of dragon chi formed a jade necklace. Although the jade necklace's light was not as bright as the Buddhist light and innate true chi, it still destroyed most of the blood-colored space. Roar! The 5-clawed golden dragon let out a dragon roar, and similarly sang, 100 million years of fate formed my soul, a dragon pool cast my body, the primordial world condensed my soul, and the dragon vein formed my name. The dragon's body swayed, and in the blood-colored space, it turned into thousands of feet long, and pounced towards the 2 demon monarchs who were already close to it. The blood-colored space was already on the verge of collapse. Under the Buddhist light, Body activated his psyche power and fought evenly with the 2 demon monarchs. In the 5-colored true Qi, of course, when Chu was not to be outdone. His 2 flying swords were like swimming dragons, dealing with the 2 demon monarchs with ease. Relying on his physical body and chanting the heavenly dragon language technique, he gradually suppressed the 2 demon monarchs. Xiao Hua chuckled and said, "Demon brothers? Do you have any other tricks?" Buzz. The surrounding space trembled, and dozens of blood-colored lights surged out again, reinforcing the space. The remaining 12 demon monarchs appeared with indescribable expressions. They looked at the 3 fighting groups, then looked at the complacent Xiao Hua, and exchanged glances with each other. Then, another 2 demon monarchs stepped on their demonic beasts and rushed out, as if they wanted to see what tricks Xiao Hua had up his sleeves. Ha ha! Xiao Hua did not hesitate to pat his palm again. Under the horrified gazes of the demon monarchs, the formless Yuanying stepped on a thunderbolt and appeared in front of the demon monarchs. The formless nascent soul was originally formless, but it was able to reveal itself in the void. It was only 3 feet tall and was surrounded by lightning. As soon as it landed in the blood-red space, the surrounding space was pulverized by a series of thunderbolts. A gentle voice came from its mouth. "Thunderbolts are my name, thunderbolts are my weapons, thunderbolts are my actions, and heavenly retribution is my fate." Chapter 4086. As soon as he finished speaking, the formless nascent soul named Thunder gradually expanded under the control of the green-robed Xiao Hua. It turned into a cultivator with a similar figure to Xiao Hua. It held 2 thunderbolts as weapons and faced the 2 demon monarchs. What is this thing? The demon monarchs were puzzled when they saw the nascent soul appear. However, an indescribable temptation was born from the nascent soul's spiritual body. The demon monarchs couldn't help but drool. "Kill Tilda!" another 2 demon monarchs shouted. Demon clouds appeared under their feet and they roared as they pounced towards Xiao Hua. "Chimpage!" Xiao Hua snorted coldly and slapped the door again. Another wave of dense, desolate aura rushed out. This aura frightened all the demon monarchs, causing them to tremble slightly, as if they wanted to escape. However, when they saw Xiao Hua, who was 100 feet tall, flying out, greed appeared in their eyes. Bone-tempering Xiao Hua laughed and said, "Bone-tempering 7 colors into my body, origin gathering into my soul, desolate wilderness casting into my soul, celestial descent creating my name." As bone-tempering Xiao Hua, who called himself a celestial being, pounced towards the 2 demon monarchs with the Big Dipper fist, the other demon monarchs were slightly stunned. One demon monarch said curiously, This seems to be similar to my demon realm's great cycle of stars fist technique. This thing that's filled with desolate aura, how can it understand my demon realm's fist technique? Could it be that this is a desolate variant possessed by my demon realm's senior? A demon monarch guessed. Damn it, these 2 things are taking advantage of us. The other demon monarchs were somewhat jealous. If they occupy this desolate variant, I'm afraid they can quickly advance to demon emperor, or even demon lord. This desolate variant is no longer the primordial spirit of a human cultivator. The other 2 demon monarchs were very alert. They hurriedly urged the demon clouds to fly out and laughed, "Let us see the means of this human cultivator." Seeing 2 more demon monarchs charging at him, Xiao Hua laughed out loud. Bronze light flashed around his body as he executed the heavenly law's embodiment technique. As his body grew bigger, the phoenix parasol flew out from the light. An even more violent demonic energy filled the blood-red space. A clear cry came from the phoenix parasol, and the voice of the phoenix parasol resounded throughout the entire space. "The ancient heavenly phoenix became my body, the holy bloodline gathered my soul, the divine demonic array created my soul, and the phoenix parasol tree is my name." As the phoenix parasol flapped its wings, a demon clan aura that was even stronger than dragon vein Xiao Hua's surged out in all directions. The phoenix parasol was like a bolt of lightning as it flew across the sky and landed in front of the 2 demon monarchs. As the demon chi danced in the air, layers of demon runes condensed into ancient runes, blocking the demon chi and demon flames of the 2 demon monarch. Why did the desolate wilderness demon race appear again? All the demon monarchs were shocked. If the celestial being still had some desolate wilderness aura, then the phoenix parasol was soaked in desolate wilderness aura from head to toe. However, this desolate wilderness aura was slightly thin and not as thick as they had imagined. Now, there were only 6 devil monarchs left. 2 of them couldn't hold themselves back and jumped out. They brandished their devil weapons and summoned a devil fire that was 1,000 feet long to charge at Xiao Hua. They even shouted, "That human, I want to see what other tricks you have." Although Xiao Hua couldn't understand what the 2 demon kings were talking about, he gave a faint smile. Green light surged out from between the eyebrows of his enormous golden body. Puff! A dark green stream of light rushed out. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, who was wearing an ancient magus outfit and a crown on his head, flew out. Xiao Hua held the YA pen in his hand, smiled faintly, then opened his mouth. Tens of green seal characters flew out, one after another turning into the voice of gods and ghosts in midair. "When the heaven and earth were born, my soul was born, the sun and moon transformed into my soul, the chaos transformed into my language, the prehistorical magus overlord is my name." This sound easily tore apart the blood-colored space, and the green light even surrounded the 2 demon monarchs. The soul power on the YA brush that could give the dragon painting finishing touch trembled, and a large amount of demonic chi was turned into nothingness. The remaining 4 demon monarchs trembled in midair. Xiao Hua's methods were getting more and more inconceivable. These demon monarchs who had always been fearless could no longer imagine what other tricks Xiao Hua had up his sleeves. They looked at each other and the bloody light surged around their bodies. Their figures gradually turned transparent. "Since things have already come to this point, why do you still want to run?" Xiao Hua sneered. Demon chi surged around Xiao Hua's body, and the demon monarch Xiao Hua flew out of Xiao Hua's heavenly law's embodiment technique. The 4 demon monarchs saw the demon monarch Xiao Hua's demon chi. Although they were stunned, disdain appeared in their eyes. They were about to flee, but they stopped. Greed appeared in their eyes. They wanted to devour Xiao Hua. However, Xiao Hua sneered and sang, "An immortal weapon formed my soul. Billions of blood spirits cast my soul. An ancient demon weapon formed my body. Endless slaughter is my name." As Xiao Hua's voice drifted out, The demon monarch Xiao Hua waved the demon monarch Xiao Hua's left hand. Boundless demon chi turned into monstrous demon flames that surged towards the 4 demon monarchs. When the 4 demon monarchs saw the demon monarch Xiao Hua's demon chi, they shouted in unison, "Demon monarch Xiao Hua, you! How do you have demon monarch Xiao Hua?" At this point, the 4 demon monarchs no longer dared to be arrogant in front of demon monarch Xiao Hua. Their demon chi surged rapidly, and their bodies seemed to fade away. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua sneered, "All of you, stay here." As he spoke, Shi Jiang waved his devil blade, but he did not slash at the 4 demon monarchs. Instead, he raised his blade and slashed down, sealing off the surrounding space. Looking at Xiao Hua again, he rubbed his hands, and several rays of crystal light fell into the air. They transformed into small snake-like crystal threads that fluttered around the 4 demon monarchs. Whenever the demon monarch's devil chi came into contact with the crystal threads, they would explode into pieces. In just a few breaths, the 4 demon monarchs were forced into a ball by Xiao Hua. Do you know what it means to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it? Xiao Hua, you looked around at the battle that was taking place within 100 kilometers. He said indifferently, "It would be easy for this old man to kill all of you. However, in order to beat you at your own game, I had no choice but to make you fall into my trap. Now that this old man's plan has succeeded, all of you, just obediently become my dishes." As he spoke, Shi suddenly waved his demonic blade. The bodies of the 4 demon monarchs trembled. They tried their best to activate their demonic chi to block, but the surrounding space was sealed by Xiao Hua. Not only were they unable to produce their demonic flames, they were also unable to use their innate ability to escape through the air. As the demonic blade descended, more than 50% of their bodies were chopped off. Demon monarch Xiao Hua's face revealed true ferocity. He opened his mouth, and demon chi flew out, turning into a net that covered the 4 demon monarchs. Under the urging of the demon flames, the 4 demon monarchs obediently fell into demon monarch Xiao Hua's mouth. "Fellow Taoists, you can make your move now." Xiao Hua looked at Shi with satisfaction as he once again opened his mouth and sucked in all the demonic chi around him. Only then did he open his mouth and laugh. "Good." Body and the others laughed together. Their cultivation was much higher than the 2 demon monarchs, but in order to lure them, they had been hiding their strength. With Xiao Hua's command, they used all kinds of methods. Body took out his arms bowl, Wen Chu took out the Yuzhou cauldron, and one by one, they captured the demon monarchs in front of them. As for demon monarch Xiao Hua, his demon blade danced, and he easily killed dozens of demon generals. "Thank you, big brothers." Demon monarch Xiao Hua was very careful. He bowed to the other primordial spirits, then opened his mouth again. The primordial spirits sent the captured demon monarchs into demon monarch Xiao Hua's mouth. Looking at demon monarch Xiao Hua devouring the 18 demon monarchs, Wen Chu and the others clasped their hands and entered Xiao Hua's body. Taking advantage of this time, demon monarch Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and all the demon chi and demon flames in the blood-red space fell into his stomach. Xiao Hua looked around, nodded, and said, "Not bad. We have achieved a great victory in our first battle. Congratulations. It's all thanks to big brothers. This little brother is nothing." Demon monarch Xiao Hua was very humble. Xiao Hua looked at demon monarch Xiao Hua and the demon blade on his left arm, and said, "These demon monarchs seem to know the origin of this demon blade. Carefully look at their memories, and their cultivation techniques, and those that are suitable for you to cultivate yourself. If there are any extra, you have to transfer them and leave them for Zhong Qingxiao in the future." "Yes, little brother understands." Demon monarch Xiao Hua nodded, and his body began to transform. And at this moment, an extremely powerful wave penetrated from outside the void. Demon monarch Xiao Hua frowned, and the demon blade in his hand was about to swing out. "You can go back." Xiao Hua calmly instructed, "Wait for me to go and see what happened." "Yes, sir." Demon monarch Xiao Hua turned into a wisp of green smoke and entered Xiao Hua's body. The delusion breaker eye between Xiao Hua's brows opened, and a silver-white pillar of light landed in the void, easily tearing open a spatial crack that was several zhong in size. At this moment, the ripple swept across Xiao Hua's body and turned elsewhere. "Oh, what is this?" Xiao Hua tore open the void and stepped on the air. He couldn't help but be surprised, only to see a strange demon beast that was thousands of zhong in size crawling in the air. This demon beast looked like a rabbit, but its entire body was covered with scales. A golden horn protruded from between its blood-red eyes. The powerful ripple came from this golden horn. On the back of the monster, a pair of wings that were thousands of zhong in size emitted a slightly holy moonlight. The remaining demonic energy near the teleportation array was all dispersed by this moonlight. Daoist Master Xiao. A hoarse voice with pleasant surprise entered Xiao Hua's ears. You. Who are you? Looking at this old woman who was about to die, Xiao Hua's eyes were filled with confusion as he asked in a low voice. I. This old woman was naturally Yu Mingxin. Her eyes were filled with ecstasy, and tears were already flowing down. She opened her mouth, but didn't know how to explain. No, you are. Xiao Hua looked at Yu Mingxin's familiar clothes and the expression in her eyes. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something and cried out in surprise. Daoist Master Xiao. Yu Changming hurriedly flew over and said with a smile, she is Junior's junior sister, Yu Mingxin. You. How did you become like this? Xiao Hua was very puzzled. He looked around and saw that the thousands of Daoist disciples were facing the moon beast that they had summoned. They were all kneeling on the ground, not daring to stand up. Daoist Master Xiao. Yu Changming hurriedly explained, Junior sister saw you fall into the demon monarch's demonic array. After Yu Changming explained the situation, Xiao Hua's heart softened. He smiled and said, you silly girl, if this old man didn't want to, how could a mere demon monarch take this old man away? Open your mouth. Chapter 4087. When Yu Mingxin heard Xiao Hua calling her a silly girl, her tears flowed down uncontrollably. When she saw Xiao Hua in a difficult situation and remembered that Xiao Hua had just saved her life, she panicked. When she thought of the moon beast, it was as if she had grasped onto a life-saving straw. She did not consider the consequences at all. Now that she thought about it, she felt a little scared. When Yu Mingxin heard Xiao Hua's order, although she did not understand, she still obediently opened her small mouth that was full of wrinkles. Xiao Hua reached out his hand and a rejuvenation pill fell into her mouth. Along with the numbing lightning, the medicinal liquid flowed into Yu Mingxin's stomach. It was as if time had turned back, and it was also as if a spring breeze was caressing her face. Her wrinkled face was filled with youthfulness, and her white hair turned black. This rejuvenation pill was made by the green-robed Xiao Hua and the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua together. It was not as simple as just restoring youthfulness. Although Yu Mingxin could not completely recover the hundreds of years of her lifespan that she had lost for Xiao Hua, with the help of the rejuvenation pill, she could still recover most of her lifespan. Daoist Master Xiao. Looking at her wrinkled hands becoming plump little by little, how could Yu Mingxin not know the miraculous effects of Xiao Hua's medicinal pills? In the end, Yu Mingxin waved her hand, but on the surface of the mirror, a beautiful and delicate woman like a flower and jade appeared once again. Yu Mingxin's heart thumped wildly. She said tenderly, many thanks for Daoist Master's rejuvenation technique. No need. Xiao Hua smiled and said, you gave up your life essence for me, so I naturally have to replenish it for you. This is what I should do. Puff puff. Just as Xiao Hua finished speaking, a strange sound came from beside Xiao Hua. Then, a powerful wave swept through the void and landed on Xiao Hua's body. A shadow that was a few feet tall appeared beside Yu Mingxin. It was the shadow of the moon beast that was a few feet tall. The moon beast that was 1,000 feet tall was indeed intimidating, but the shadow that was a few feet tall was as cute as a rabbit. Especially when the shadow of the moon beast was sniffing something beside Yu Mingxin and flapping its wings anxiously, it was really unbearable to look at. Spiritual Master Xiao. Yu Mingxin understood the moon beast's thoughts. She begged softly, do you still have any more pills? Lord Moon Beast seems to like that pill. Xiao Hua looked at the moon beast and rolled his eyes. He smiled and said, you were summoned by Miss Mingxin, so you can be considered to be fated with her. Don't forget her name, she is Yu Mingxin, a disciple of the fragrant cult in the ruins. Puff, puff. The lunar beast seemed to have understood what he was saying. It flapped its tiny wings. Xiao Hua raised his hand and threw another rejuvenation pill into the moon beast's mouth. Boom! The lunar beast's wings trembled, and the entire shadow shattered into pieces. Then, the lunar beast let out a long cry at the moon shadow in the sky. Apart from 2 pieces that remained on the ground, the rest fell into the lunar beast's body. Then, a wave of energy shot up into the sky, and the moonlight shone down as well. The lunar beast's body started to shrink rapidly, and in a moment, it disappeared. The moonlight also disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Swoosh! As the moonlight disappeared, the 2 pieces of the lunar beast's shadow also disappeared. However, Xiao Hua and Yu Mingxin were shocked at the same time. They saw a faint image of the lunar beast appearing at the same spot on their right hand. Damn it! Yu Mingxin's heart was filled with happiness. She hurriedly kowtowed to the moonlight. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, was shocked and could not help but curse. The lunar beast's strength was nothing to Xiao Hua, but its method was really strange. Xiao Hua actually did not know how the fragments fell into his hands. Farewell, Lord Moon Beast. Thousands of Daoist cultivators kowtowed together as they shouted. This lunar beast is a little strange. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the vague outline of the moon. This moon palace is even stranger. I just don't know if my cultivation technique is different from the ruins. Otherwise, I would really want to go to the moon world to take a look. After sending off the lunar beast, the thousands of Daoist cultivators bowed together and said, "Juniors thank Spiritual Master Xiao for saving our life." "Hehe, you're welcome." Xiao Hua waved his hand and helped all the cultivators up. He smiled and said, "We are all from the human race. Of course, we have to face the demon race together. Moreover, I am very happy that all of you are praying for me together just now." Immediately after, the various sects and clans recommended a few disciples to meet Xiao Hua and ask him to take care of the matters here. Unfortunately, how could Xiao Hua make the decision? He smiled and said, "Although I am your senior, I am still new here. I am not very clear about the ruins. You can discuss it first. When you need me, just tell me." "Yes." A few disciples who were of virtue replied and started to discuss in low voices. In just a moment, they had already decided on a plan. They came together to report. It was nothing more than sending disciples back to the various sects to report, leaving most of the disciples here to guard the teleportation formations. They also asked the disciples who knew a little about teleportation formations to repair the teleportation formations first. When the seniors from the various sects who were proficient in teleportation formations arrived, all the teleportation formations would be repaired. Xiao Hua did not raise any objections. They all nodded in agreement and let these disciples pass down the orders. Although Xiao Hua did not say anything, his existence was where everyone felt at ease. Following these orders, the group of disciples set up defenses, transmitted messages, and repaired the teleportation formations in an orderly manner. However, after a moment, those few disciples left again with somewhat difficult expressions. They said in a low voice, "Daoist Xiao, we juniors have another piece of news that we do not know whether it is true or false. Please make a decision." "Oh, what news?" Xiao Hua's heart stirred, and he asked somewhat strangely. At this moment, a large man dressed in embroidered clothes held a treasured saber in his hand. He landed in front of Xiao Hua and bowed, saying, "Junior is Shindao sect's disciple Wan Wuxin. Greetings, Daoist Xiao." Wan Wuxin? Xiao Hua blinked his eyes. Out of the corner of his eye, he swept a glance at Yu Mingxin, who was standing at the side with a smile. An indescribable sense of familiarity arose in his heart. Thus, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "What news do you have?" "This." Wan Wuxin was somewhat hesitant. He said in a low voice, "Junior received a piece of news, but could not distinguish whether it was true or false. Junior originally wanted to use the teleportation formation to send the news back to Shindao sect and ask the seniors in the sect to make a decision. However, when I arrived here and saw that the teleportation formation had been attacked by the Devil Clan, I felt that this news was conclusive. However, when I thought that there were actually more than 10 Devil Monarchs lying in ambush here, Junior felt that this news was also a trap. Thus, Junior did not dare to be certain. Moreover, Junior did not dare to tell the disciples of the other sects. Tell me, I have my own judgment. Xiao Hua was somewhat impatient. He interrupted Wn Wuxin's words and asked. Wn Wuxin's face was slightly red. His words indeed had the intention of shirking responsibility. Since Xiao Hua had seen through it, he could not help but say, Junior received news that a devil emperor personally led 500,000 devil soldiers and devil generals to the southwest of the ruins. He wanted to exterminate White Cloud Monastery, Soft Sound Palace, Fuwu Ridge and 10 other sect. There were several thousand disciples at the teleportation formation. Of course, there were disciples from White Cloud Monastery and other sects. When these disciples heard this, they could not help but become anxious. A few of them immediately bowed and said, Daoist Xiao, our sects are in trouble. Daoist Xiao, please help us. Daoist Xiao's grace, we will never forget it. This. Xiao Hua was somewhat hesitant. Killing a few devil generals and capturing a few devil monarchs did not pose too much pressure to him. It was as easy as lifting his hand. However, if he was facing a devil emperor, facing hundreds of thousands of devil soldiers and devil generals, it was not something that he alone could decide the outcome of the battle. Moreover, how could such an important piece of news be easily obtained by a disciple like Wn Wuxin? Even if Xiao Hua used his heel to think, he would know that this was a trap. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly thought of something. He waved his hand and said, You all discuss it first. This old man still has some urgent matters to attend to. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and disappeared from everyone's sight. After that, everyone felt that a strong hurricane was born high up in the sky. It swept towards the surrounding 10,000 li radius. For a moment, sand and stones flew everywhere. The sky was filled with chaos. Hey! What is Senior Xiao doing? Wn Wuxin looked at everyone with some astonishment and asked in a low voice. Several people shook their heads slightly. Sensing that the surrounding temperature was gradually turning cold, they were also puzzled. Yu Mingxin smiled. Senior Xiao is using a secret technique to detect the whereabouts of the nearby devil race. He should be preparing to go to the southwest border to help the 10 sects. However, he is afraid that the previous 10 devil monarchs will have an even bigger ambush near the teleportation formation. Daoist Xiao is really considerate. Everyone sighed in their hearts. They hurriedly lowered their heads to discuss how to send a message to the 3 major sects and how to send disciples to assist the 10 sects. Xiao Hua naturally wasn't searching for the traces of the devil race like Yu Mingxin said. He just thought of the devil monarch's devil banner and knew that under the siege of the devil race, the souls of the cultivators who died in battle couldn't fall into the 9 underworlds. Therefore, he opened his illusion breaker eye and urged the netherworld origin power of the yin side of space to collect the souls of the cultivators who died in battle. This collection didn't matter, but it gave Xiao Hua a fright. Not only were there many wandering souls near the teleportation formation, even the surrounding 10,000 li radius and 100,000 li radius were also filled with wandering souls. Presumably, the devil race didn't have time to refine and devour the cultivators who died in the successive battles. When Xiao Hua returned with a full load, Wn Wuxin and the others also discussed the result. Some disciples even left the teleportation formation and rushed to other places to spread this news. Senior. Wn Wuxin said carefully, Junior got this news by chance. As he spoke, Wn Wuxin told the process of how he got the news. It was nothing more than going deep into the enemy's rear and relying on some small tricks to hear some secrets of the devil race. Finally, Wn Wuxin said again, Junior knows this process sounds very unrealistic, but the language of the devil race is abnormally obscure. Our human cultivators have never been able to understand it. Especially the lowest level devil soldiers, they come from all parts of the devil world. The syllables they speak are also different. However, Junior had some luck previously and obtained a jade slip. Inside it is the pronunciation method of the devil world. Although Junior can't understand the majority of the devil race's pronunciation, there are still 2 or 3 obscure syllables that Junior can understand. Yet, what you heard from the demon soldier is what you understand. Xiao Hua asked thoughtfully as he pinched his chin. Wan Wuxin nodded vigorously. Indeed. Then, Wan Wuxin took out a bright silver jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. He said respectfully, "Senior, if you don't believe me, you can take a look." Chapter 4088. Seeing Wan Wuxin's worry and panic, Xiao Hua shook his head and said with a smile, "It's not that I don't believe you. I just feel that my cultivation hasn't reached the level where I can fight against the Demon Emperor. Moreover, I have to face 500,000 demon soldiers, so I'm a bit hesitant." Xiao Hua's words were very honest, far from the hypocritical excuses of an ordinary senior. This made everyone feel more at ease. A cultivator said with a smile, "Senior, please rest assured. In fact, although there are only a dozen sects in the southwest border, there are millions of disciples. However, there aren't many experts in these sects, so it's difficult to resist the Demon Emperor. Senior defeated a dozen demon monarchs before. Although your cultivation isn't as high as the Demon Emperor, I'm afraid it's not much different. The heads of the 10 sects, plus Senior, should be able to hold on for several days. At this time, the news of the Demon Emperor's attack on the southwest border has already spread. In a few days, the disciples of the 3 great sects and other sects will come to the southwest border. Senior, you just need to delay until then. Wan Wuxin. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, raised his hand and said, "Give me your jade slip, I want to make a copy." "No problem, Senior, please." Wan Wuxin hurriedly handed the jade slip to Xiao Hua. At the same time, several other disciples hurriedly took out different jade slips from their spatial rings and handed them to Xiao Hua one by one. They all seemed to be jade slips that recorded the demon race's language. After Xiao Hua made a copy of these jade slips, he looked at them slightly and said, "I'm going to the southwest border. Is there a transmission array that can directly go there? Which disciple is willing to lead the way for me?" "I'm willing." Not only were the disciples of the 10 sects enthusiastic, Wan Wuxin, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming also flew in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked at Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming and said with a smile, "You two don't need to go. You've just escaped, so you should hurry back to the fragrant religion. Bring the southwest border matter back to the sect, and also my apology. When I return from the southwest border, I will pay a visit to your sect master." Yu Mingxin seemed to insist, but Xiao Hua shook his head at her and said, "Moreover, Miss Yu's profound qi was damaged, so you must go back and recuperate. Otherwise, wouldn't my pills be wasted? If you still want to have a head full of white hair, you can follow me to the southwest border." Yu Mingxin stuck out her tongue. Thinking back to her nightmarish experience, she nodded obediently. "Let's go." Xiao Hua waved his hand and flew into the air. He shouted, "We'll rush to the southwest border. I hope it won't be too late." "Yes." The crowd of about 100 cultivators responded and followed Xiao Hua into the air. But after a short moment, Wan Wuxin turned his head and looked around, asking tentatively, "Senior Xiao, could it be that we're just going to fly over like this?" Xiao Hua's flying speed had long surpassed ordinary flying artifacts, so he didn't need to use the Pegasus, flying chariot, and other flying artifacts. Furthermore, he had just arrived at the ruins, so he wasn't familiar with anything in the ruins. Of course, he didn't know that there were other flying artifacts in the ruins other than teleportation formations. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This old man is someone from the outside world. I'm not familiar with the situation in the ruins. Feel free to speak your mind." "Yes, Senior." Wan Wuxin smiled apologetically. He looked around and said, "Among the 10 sects in the southwest border, the one closest to here should be Baiyun Taoist Temple, right?" "Indeed." A Baiyun Taoist disciple hastily flew over and said, "From here to my Baiyun Taoist Temple's Baixia Ridge, it's several million li. If we were to simply fly over, I'm afraid it would take several months. Although there are some teleportation formations in the middle, the closest teleportation formation is a million li away. However, since the Devil Emperor wants to invade the southwest border, he would most likely seal off the southwest 4 territories, so those teleportation formations can't be used. Also, because this is the teleportation hub, there aren't any sects nearby." Another disciple added, "The closest sect is Blood Palace Hall in the east. It's also 1,000,000 li away. That Blood Palace Hall is 2,000,000 li away from Bayun Taoist Temple. Right now, the news has already been sent out through the passage near the teleportation formation, but even if Blood Palace Hall sends out disciples, they wouldn't be as fast as us. Furthermore, Blood Palace Hall has a grudge with Bayun Taoist Temple, and 50 years ago, they were attacked by the devil race, so they probably wouldn't send out disciples to fight. Only when the three major sects, incense-spreading cult, Shandao sect, and Misty School, receive the news, the conference hall will jointly issue orders, and only then will the sects send out disciples to fight. WN Wuxin continued, otherwise, I would have already told the other disciples. It's a bit messy. Xiao Hua scratched his head. He wasn't good at commanding, and now that he had just arrived at the ruins, he was completely clueless about the Daoist Devil War, so he was even more confused after hearing all the disciples talking at once. Fortunately, WN Wuxin whispered from the side, Senior Xiao, the flames of war have spread throughout the ruins. Our Dao sect has more than 100 sects. Other than leaving enough disciples to guard the mountain gates, the other disciples have formed an army to fight against the devil race at the outer realm Great Array. The Devil Emperor suddenly left the battlefield and attacked the southwest border. Even if the army received the news, they would have to mobilize their troops immediately. Their actions are delayed, so they might not be able to save the 10 sects. Now, we have to rely on the disciples left behind by the other sects. Our Shandao sect, the three major sects, and the conference hall naturally wouldn't sit by and do nothing. However, if we had to use the teleportation formation to reach Blood Palace Hall and then fly to Bayun Taoist Temple, I'm afraid it would be too late. As for perfected person. At this point, WN Wuxin was somewhat hesitant, and he transmitted his voice, Senior, you don't have to take my words seriously when I asked you to save Bayun Taoist Temple. Oh, why? Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, since I'm going to Bayun Taoist Temple, why can't I save them? Senior's cultivation is heaven-defying and has already reached the Dao transformation realm, but the Devil Emperor is personally commanding 500,000 devil soldiers. Senior, you definitely can't face them alone. Moreover, Senior doesn't have to fight the Devil Emperor for real. WN Wuxin explained, with Senior's divine ability, as long as you appear near Bayun Taoist Temple and disturb the Devil Army, the Devil Emperor will know that their plan has been discovered by our Dao sect cultivators. They will definitely retreat and definitely won't be besieged by our Dao sect army. Oh. Xiao Hua came to a realization and nodded. I understand. You want me to disturb the Devil Emperor and make him mistakenly think that the army is coming. Yes. WAN Wuxin nodded. That's exactly what Junior meant. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you go or not. Xiao Hua looked at WN Wuxin and asked meaningfully. WN Wuxin's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly replied, Senior, you're overthinking. This news was brought by me. I don't know whether others will go or not, but I will definitely go with Senior. Then let's go together. Xiao Hua was even more puzzled. Why do you still ask us if we can fly over? Senior. WN Wuxin was somewhat helpless and could only say, what Junior means is that if we fly over like this, I'm afraid that the Devil Emperor will have already destroyed the 10 southwestern sects. If we have some flying Dharma treasure or some spatial transmission secret technique, our speed will be faster. Xiao Hua sighed. WAN Wuxin, if you have anything to say, just say it. Who knows what you're going to say if you keep being secretive and only say half a sentence? Yes, Junior understands. WN Wuxin's forehead was somewhat sweaty, but he was also secretly complaining in his heart. There were some things that he could say directly to Senior, but there were some things that he couldn't say for the sake of Senior's face. How could he know that Senior Xiao Hua knew nothing about the ruins and had to ask about everything? Don't you have flying Dharma treasures? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Naturally, we all have flying Dharma treasures, WN Wuxin carefully replied. However, our flying Dharma treasures are relatively low level and are only used for short distances. For long-distance flights, we usually use transmission arrays. Therefore, what Junior means is, does Senior have a Dharma treasure for long-distance flights? If you do, we can ride Senior's Dharma treasure and directly go there. Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed, waved his hand, and said, if it was before, this old man naturally didn't have one. But before we arrived at the ruins, this old man just happened to build a flying boat. Now, it can be used. As Xiao Hua waved his arm, a clap of thunder was heard out of thin air. Soon after, a huge black shadow appeared in front of everyone. A thunderous momentum rushed out from the black shadow, blowing all the cultivators to the point that they couldn't stand steadily. When everyone saw the thing that appeared in mid-air, their eyes unconsciously widened, and their faces were full of surprise. In mid-air, a thunderboat that was several thousand feet in size flashed with endless lightning, majestically floating there. The thunderboat was entirely ashen in color, and on the surface of the thunderboat, there were clear runes that flowed in the shape of lightning. The bow of the thunderboat was like a flying sword, and a layer of lightning arc was produced, instantly passing through the surface of the thunderboat and landing on the stern of the thunderboat. The stern of the thunderboat was also like a flying sword, but when the lightning reached the tip of the flying sword, it turned into a sphere of lightning that was 1 foot in size and entered the thunderboat. As the lightning arc flashed, the entire thunderboat let out a rumbling sound. This rumbling sound was incessant, and it seemed to resonate in everyone's heart. Huan Wuxin and the other cultivators of the ancient ruins had seen many flying Dharma artifacts. Some of them might be bigger than this thunderboat, and some of them might be more majestic than this thunderboat. However, they had never seen a flying Dharma artifact that was driven by lightning. Wan Wuxin groaned, and asked somewhat weakly, Senior, this flying boat of yours, how many primordial stones do you need to drive it? Haha, if I need to use primordial stones to drive it, then this old man will be poor to death after flying for a while. I'm afraid that no matter how many primordial stones I have, it won't be enough. Xiao Hua laughed, waved his hand, and said, Everyone, get on. Yes, Senior. The disciples were overjoyed, and they all flew onto the thunderboat. When they arrived on the thunderboat, the disciples realized that the thunderboat was covered with puppets. These puppets were in human form, and some were in beast form. They were either driving the flying boat or patrolling the thunderboat. Everything was in good order. Wan Wuxin tilde Xiao Hua shouted, Do we fly directly to the southwest? Yes, Senior. Wan Wuxin hurriedly replied, At this time, we just need to fly to the southwest. While speaking, Huan Wuxin pointed in the southwest direction, as if drawing legs on a snake. Chapter 4089. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and raised his hand to form hand seals, hitting a few puppets who were the leaders. Then, he hit a few more hand seals at the core of the thunderboat. There was a small lightning pool there. As the lightning pool flickered, thin lightning water flowed out. The thunderboat rushed towards the southwest with a rumbling sound. Xiao Hua had obtained a damaged thunder-concealing bead from Daoist Han in the Misty Mountain Maze formation back then. Xiao Hua relied on this thunder-concealing bead and Do Shanjuan's cultivation method to cultivate the art of lightning to great success. When he was building the thunderboat, he suddenly had a strange idea. He abandoned the thunderboat's origin stone formation and used a lightning pool instead. This lightning pool was built by Xiao Hua according to his comprehension of the thunder-concealing bead's true essence of lightning. Although it was not perfect, it was more than enough to provide lightning for the thunderboat. With this lightning pool, the thunderboat built by Xiao Hua was more than twice as fast as the thunderboat of the Thunder Control Sec. The thunderboat flew up. Xiao Hua looked at Wan Wuxin and said with a smile, Wan Wuxin, what's your cultivation level now? Wan Wuxin answered respectfully, Senior, please no. Junior's aptitude is dull. I'm only in the Qi refinement realm. Qi refinement realm? Xiao Hua was stunned. However, he understood in a moment that this Qi refinement realm was definitely not the Qi refinement realm that he knew. Moreover, the void refinement realm that Yu Mingxian mentioned earlier was definitely not the void refinement realm that he knew. He thought for a moment and asked, How are the cultivation realms in the ruins divided? Senior. Wan Wuxin was slightly stunned. His eyes rolled a few times and he understood something. Hence, he answered honestly, the cultivation of the ruins is divided into 8 major realms: essence refinement, Qi transformation, deity transformation, void transformation, and Dao transformation. There are 9 levels in each realm. Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. The division of the realms in the ruins was almost the same as the division of the Confucian cultivators. Except for the last realm, the Confucian cultivators were the void refinement realm. However, the Tao sect of the ruins separated each realm of the Confucian cultivators into 2. They were also divided into 9 levels. Damn it, what's going on? Xiao Hua cursed in his heart and casually said, "Show this old man your cultivation method." Ah! WN Wuxin was stunned and hesitated. Xiao Hua glanced at him unhappily and said, "There's no need to use your Shindao sect's cultivation method. Ordinary cultivation methods will do." Yes, Junior knows his mistake. WN Wuxin blushed and hurriedly took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua immersed his spirit sense into the jade slip and took a look. His brows wrinkled even more. Inside the jade slip was a simple cultivation method. There were only 3 realms: essence refining, qi transforming, and qi refining. What was recorded inside were genuine Tao sect cultivation techniques. What magic arts, magic power, and so on were all similar to the hidden immortal continent and dawn rain continent. However, the essence of cultivation was completely different from what Xiao Hua knew. The cultivators in the ruins did not cultivate their nascent souls, but their primordial spirit. Damn it, it's really messed up. Xiao Hua scratched his head. What the hell is going on? The true essence of Confucian cultivation was to cultivate the breath of life in the chess. Cultivating the 5 qis unification. However, they took the wrong path. I don't know when they started to cultivate their primordial spirits and pursue power like the Tao sect. My Tao sect originally stole the power of heaven and earth and communicated with yin and yang to give birth to babies. We focused on cultivating our nascent souls. How come we started to cultivate our primordial spirits here? In the end, who is the authentic one and who is the reference? The essence of my Tao sect's cultivation, could it be that it was also lost? Could it be that this Xiao also practiced wrongly? My Tao sect is the one that cultivates primordial spirits. It seems like, even if this Xiao wants to keep the ruins, I'm afraid it's impossible. The path of cultivation is completely different. Without cultivation methods, without medicinal pills, there's simply no way to stand out. Unless this Xiao is willing to give up this Mahayana realm and cultivate from the beginning. This Xiao's final path is still to return to the hidden immortal continent's great snow mountain. Xiao Hua waved his hand and returned the jade slip to WN Wuxin, letting him go. He then stood on the flying boat and looked out of the thunderboat. Seeing the thunderboat piercing through the sky as if it was splitting the wind and cutting the waves, unbridled and fast as lightning in the sky above the ruins, the group of disciples was also drunk. Because they knew clearly in their hearts that the devil race had besieged the ruins for hundreds of years and had gone through countless battles in the ruins. The devil race was proficient in spatial escape technique. During the battles, the space of the righteous ruins was destroyed by the devil race. Don't look at the clear and cloudless blue sky, who knows how many black holes and space cracks existed in it. The flying magic tools of ordinary cultivators were the most afraid of these things and never dared to fly at full speed. Only the large magic tools within the sect dared to try to increase their speed. However, if it was like the thunderboat that was rampaging, there really wasn't any. In fact, not to mention the group of disciples, even Xiao Hua himself was so proud that he wanted to raise his tail. After this thunderboat was built, it had always been in the space and had never been taken out to fly. When it was flying, Xiao Hua released his divine sense to monitor the abnormal situation in front of him. When a space crack appeared, Xiao Hua tried to use the thunderboat's lightning to destroy it. When the huge body of the thunderboat entered the void, the power of space in the crack was about to tear the thunderboat apart. Xiao Hua discovered that the wood he obtained in the folded jade legacy realm was 100 times better than the iron palm wood in the Yazi auction house. Although it was slightly deformed under the power of space, the overflowing lightning on the surface of the thunderboat caused the power of space to sway, so this thunderboat wouldn't be torn apart. Finally, Xiao Hua felt relieved and sat cross-legged on the top of the thunderboat. He released his netherworld origin power and absorbed the wandering souls into the yin side of the space. Along with the descent of the wandering souls from the ruins, the population on the yang side of the space, after thousands of years of stagnation, began to multiply at an accelerated rate. A vigorous life force floated in the space, converged, fused into the void, and fell into the body of the heavenly Tao Xiaohua. At the same time, even more karma that was 10,000 times more complex than the life force also fell into the hands of the karma Xiaohua. Although thousands of years had passed in the space and 20,000 years had passed in the heavens prison, the cultivation of the heavenly Tao Xiaohua and the karma Xiaohua still didn't make much progress. However, the divination technique given by Zhu Xia had made considerable progress under the comprehension of the karma Xiaohua. Those comprehensions had already been obtained by Xiaohua when the Jade Archive entered the space. Currently, Xiaohua didn't know how effective this divination technique was. However, when he thought about how he was able to deduce some karma through the divination technique when he was merely at the 5th grade of essence energy, Xiaohua had high hopes for this divine ability. Just as he was thinking, Xiaohua slightly frowned and looked ahead. He opened his mouth and was about to remind some of the disciples who were meditating around the thunder boat. However, after thinking for a while, he closed his mouth. Then, he rubbed his hands and a thumb-sized crystal radiance landed on the thunderboat. Buzz! A loud rumbling sound resounded from the edge of the thunderboat. Several lightning flashes appeared and strengthened the defense of the thunderboat by several times. At the same time, the speed of the thunderboat increased by 30%. In just the time it took to eat a meal, the sky in front of the thunderboat was covered with dense blood clouds. Blood shadows that were thousands of zhong in size were roaring in the blood clouds. These blood shadows were either holding demonic artifacts or white bones. They looked extremely malevolent. Following the blood clouds, blood water flowed like a waterfall. The blood water enveloped the space within 10,000 li. Moreover, in the air 10,000 li away, groups of demonic soldiers holding demonic artifacts roared and danced in the air while riding on demonic beasts. Xiaohua, who was sitting on the thunderboat, had long sensed that the number of wandering souls in the vicinity was several times more than before. Wan Wuxin didn't really calm down to cultivate. On one hand, he was somewhat apprehensive about the accuracy of his information. On the other hand, he was also pondering about what happened after he met Xiaohua. Previously, when Xiaohua activated the thunderboat's defense, he was already vigilant. When he saw the blood clouds in the distance, Wan Wuxin suddenly stood up and shouted, "Daoist Xiao, there's a demonic array of the demon race in front of us." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Don't worry, this old man has already seen it." But Wan Wuxin shouted again, "Daoist Xiao has already seen it. Why are you still moving forward? Let this old man ask you, is this the main battlefield of the Daoist and Demon War?" Xiaohua asked indifferently as he watched the bloody waterfall in the distance with narrowed eyes. Xiaohua had the soul cultivator Xiaohua activate his soul arts and control his netherworld origin power. Wan Wuxin was taken aback, and naturally shook his head. Of course this is not the main battlefield. Since this is not the main battlefield, could the so-called Demon King be here? Should not be. Since that's the case, what do I have to fear? Moreover, if the Demon King is here, it would save me a trip to the southwest border. As he spoke, Xiaohua slapped the top of his head. His Mahayana aura rushed out and rushed toward the blood clouds in the distance. Seeing that the huge blood clouds were violently swaying under the impact of his aura, Xiaohua couldn't help but frown slightly. Good. Since Daoist Xiao is willing to fight, then we'll bathe in blood with you. Wan Wuxin and the others were also fired up by Xiaohua's words, and all of them prepared to charge out of the lightning arc. Boom! Just as the blood clouds were swaying, the roar of countless beasts erupted from the blood clouds. The entire blood clouds were torn into millions of pieces, and hundreds of devilish soldiers mounted on devilish beasts flew out from the clouds. At the same time that the blood clouds were torn apart, the spiritual sense concealment formation was opened, and Xiaohua was able to clearly see that the devilish army was densely packed with devilish soldiers. From a distance, each and every one of them looked like a bunch of green-headed flies. After a quick sweep of his spiritual sense, Xiaohua could already tell that there were over 100,000 devilish soldiers. Xiaohua couldn't help but draw a sharp breath as he exclaimed, if there are over 100,000 devilish soldiers on this side, then wouldn't there be 600,000 devilish soldiers on all sides? How could there be so many of them? Xiao Hua had never been very sensitive to numbers. Even though he had experienced the Daoist sword battle on the Dawn Rain continent, the total number of people who participated in that battle was only in the hundreds of thousands. When had he ever seen 600,000 devilish soldiers in a Daoist sword battle? Since there were 600,000 devilish soldiers, then what about the Daoist cultivators? Naturally, there would be no less than this number. Thinking back to how he had prepared to use this lightning arc to attack the devilish formation, Xiao Hua felt that he had been far too arrogant. Chapter 4090. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had already spoken too confidently. Now that the spilled water couldn't be undone, he could only charge forward. However, although there were several tens of thousands of devil soldiers, their strength was limited. Xiao Hua's remorse slowly dissipated. He was now in the Mahayana realm. The void divine ability that the devil race was so proud of was just a show in front of him. Although it was somewhat difficult to kill several tens of thousands of devil soldiers by himself, it wasn't impossible if he used all his methods. Crackle, crackle. In the air, a series of explosions resounded. Xiao Hua's pressure was blocked by the tens of thousands of devil soldiers. Moreover, in the midst of the explosions, waves of bloody impact landed on Xiao Hua's Niwen Palace, causing Xiao Hua to have an indescribable feeling of dizziness. Xiao Hua knew that this was the devil race's method to deal with Dao experts. Thus, he smiled and withdrew his pressure. Then, he slapped his forehead. Clang! A sound of metal and stone rang out. A nascent soul hand that was several hundred kilometers in size flickered with faint golden light as it fell from the sky. What divine ability is this? Ordinary nascent soul divine abilities in the Dawn Rain continent were already rare divine abilities in the ruins. WN Wuxin and the others were somewhat flabbergasted. The large golden hand descended, forcibly imprisoning more than 10,000 devil soldiers. However, the devil inscriptions around the devil soldiers flickered with strange fluctuations. Although their resistance was weak, they still stubbornly resisted. Xiao Hua's large hand grabbed and only killed about 2,000 devil soldiers. These devil soldiers were all huge in size, but when they fell into Xiao Hua's hand, their bodies rapidly shrank. Woo! The large hand quickly tightened, causing a gust of wind to rise near him. Countless devil blood splattered, and specks of devil fire fell into the air. Just like that, the 2,000 devil soldiers were turned into blood paste by Xiao Hua's hand. That gust of wind was Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua activating his netherworld origin power. Whether it was the souls of the devil soldiers or the souls of the humans on the devil artifacts, they were all absorbed into his space. Moreover, at the same time Xiao Hua activated his divine ability, the exterminating devil flames and devil blood were condensed into a fist-sized pearl and fell into his body for the devil spirit Xiao Hua to cultivate. Immediately after, Xiao Hua clawed 2 more times, killing close to 5,000 demon soldiers. When he was about to claw for the 4th time, the several tens of thousands of demon soldiers released powerful ripples at the same time. The rhythm of these ripples was similar, and along with the ripples, devil flames and devil blood flew into the air. The several tens of thousands of ripples were like tens of thousands of weak little blades of grass, blocking Xiao Hua's hand. The devil flames and devil blood then formed a several thousand zhong tall demon body in the air. The devil body had just been born when a fist smashed towards Xiao Hua's large hand. The inky black fist was crushed by the massive hand, and at the same time, the light emanating from the hand dimmed significantly. Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand was vanquished by tens of thousands of devilish soldiers. Damn it, it's a bit strange. Xiao Hua muttered. Above his head, a huge pillar of light suddenly appeared. After entering the void, it instantly hit the devil body's head. The devil body's black chi and devil blood disappeared in the pillar of light, and the huge void was repaired in a moment. Everyone on the lightning boat watched such a wonderful battle with extraordinary splendor in their eyes. When Xiao Hua's attack was thwarted, WN Wuxin shouted, "Senior Xiao, this devil body is the condensation of the devil spirits of tens of thousands of devil soldiers, it's not a real devil body." Junior has heard of our Dao sect's primordial spirit devouring technique. It's very effective. Damn it. Xiao Hua was helpless. He laughed bitterly in his heart. This Xiao only cultivates the nascent soul, not the primordial spirit. How would I know about the primordial spirit devouring technique? Although Xiao Hua didn't know about the primordial spirit devouring technique, he knew about lightning arts. A dark green brilliance appeared on his forehead, and green seal characters fell into the air. Rumble. The space within hundreds of kilometers was filled with 3 corpses yin lightning, killing more than half of the devil body. The power of the lightning arts seems to have increased greatly in the ruins. Xiao Hua's lips curled into a smile. He thought in his heart, and shouted again, "Sit tight and watch this old man's moves." Quan Wuxin hastily sat down cross-legged, while Xiao Hua urged the thunderbolt to speed up once again. Boom boom. The sound of space trembling could be heard as the thunderbolt crushed the somewhat transparent devil body. The thunderbolts on the thunderbolt shattered the devil body. Under the lightning bolt's attack, nearly 30% of the tens of thousands of devil soldiers fell from the sky. Immediately after, the lightning bolt rushed into the blood-colored waterfall under the blood clouds. The blood-colored waterfall was abnormally tough. When the bow of the lightning bolt landed on it, it actually couldn't pierce through it. Following which, the entire thundership let out an even louder roar as several lightning bolts charged into the blood-colored waterfall. It was as though the entire world was trembling as the lightning bolts tore a crack in the blood-colored waterfall. As soon as the crack appeared, countless demons pounced on the thundership, baring their fangs as they tore at the thundership. Blood even dripped onto the thundership and flowed down. Dang, dang, dang. The sounds of devil weapons hitting the lightning bolt frightened Quan Wuxin and the others, causing goosebumps to appear all over their bodies. Rumble, rumble. The lightning on the lightning bolt seemed to be endless. It flickered continuously, and its power didn't decrease at all. After every lightning bolt, all the blood would disappear, and all the devils would be killed and turned into powder. The lightning bolt's invincibility was revealed once again. Xiao Hua, who was controlling the thundership, saw through the defense of the thundership and saw the demon formation clearly. Just as he had expected, the inside of the demon formation was filled with bloodstains. Every 10 feet of bloodstains, there would be a demon. The lightning bolt traveled for hundreds of miles, and it seemed as though it was traveling through a blood sea in the netherworld. Alas, things are getting out of hand. Xiao Hua sighed. This Daoist Devil War really has many things that this Xiao can easily participate in. If not for the lightning pool driving the lightning boat, this Xiao would have lost face. Just as Xiao Hua was thinking, a powerful divine sense penetrated from afar. Although a part of it was eroded by the devil array, it still easily landed on the lightning boat. Of course, the lightning boat's defense blocked the probing of this divine sense. When this divine sense landed, several lightning bolts even hit it. When the divine sense saw how powerful the lightning bolt was, it hurriedly withdrew. Xiao Hua quickly released his divine sense and was about to make contact with that divine sense. Woo! At this moment, all the demonic soldiers and demonic generals within the demonic array quickly dodged. A blood-colored demonic golem that was almost 10,000 feet tall flew over from afar. This demonic golem was surging with black flames. Strands of black flames and demonic blood coiled around the demonic golem's body, forming huge knots. Within these knots, there were many demonic generals dancing and roaring. It looked very much like a simple demonic armor. As soon as the devil statue came out, it flapped its wings and a hurricane suddenly appeared. Its tail had already landed on the lightning boat. Boom! The entire lightning boat's defense cracked like glass. The lightning was suffocating, and the whole lightning boat rolled in the devil array. Roar! Just as the devil statue was about to stretch out its devil claws and tear the lightning boat apart, Xiao Hua roared and rushed out with the wishful steel staff in his hand. As soon as Xiao Hua flew out, he was only a few dozen feet in size. Then, his whole body flashed with a bronze brilliance. Boom! A strong moonlight fell from the sky. Not only did it tear a crack in the demonic array, but it also fell on Xiao Hua's Dharma body. His transcendence golden body also expanded rapidly. In just a few breaths, a golden body that was as tall as a demon statue also stood in the demonic array. How could Xiao Hua give the devil statue a chance? As soon as the golden body was formed, he immediately stepped on the demon cloud and waved the wishful steel staff at the devil statue. Roar! The devil statue was obviously angry. It waved its devil wings, and its claws and 4 feet reached into the void at the same time. It actually grabbed Xiao Hua from all directions. Woo woo! The wishful steel staff danced and protected Xiao Hua's body. It was watertight. Boom boom! With a series of vibrations, the attack of the devil statue seemed to be hit by the wishful steel staff at the same time. The wishful steel staff was heavy, and Xiao Hua's current strength was even more incredible. Ao ao! The devil statue roared in pain and its figure retreated quickly. Catcher! Another flash of lightning, and Xiao Hua's golden body suddenly fell in front of the devil statue. Boom! With a loud noise, Xiao Hua's fist had smashed into the body of the devil statue. A black flame mixed with demon blood sprayed out and fell on Xiao Hua's arm. Zilla! The sound of corrosion filled the world again. However, the demon blood only corroded the bronze brilliance of the golden body a little. When the surface of the golden body was covered with a faint layer of demonic chi, the demon blood and black flame slowly disappeared. Woo! The devil statue was in great pain. Its claws danced in the air, and the previous sound of the wind fell on Xiao Hua's arms. Cha. An obscure sound came from the surface of Xiao Hua's body. The devil statue's claws flashed with bright blood. Looking at Xiao Hua's arms, there were several shallow cracks, but it did not penetrate the flesh at all. Hee. The devil statue was obviously shocked. It did not expect the golden body of the human cultivator opposite it to be so strong. At the same time, the devil statue's left wing hurriedly chopped down, trying to force Xiao Hua to pull his arm out of the devil statue. Unfortunately, at the same time, Xiao Hua's arm blocked it without fear. Ka. Once again, there was a sound of metal. The devil statue's left wing was beaten into a bloody mess, and it had to retreat quickly. Good. In the distance, a figure of 100 feet in size stepped on a flying sword and rushed into the demonic array. Seeing such a brave person like Xiao Hua, it could not help but shout out to him. Xiao Hua glanced at the armored cultivator and swayed again, smashing the head of the devil statue with the wishful steel staff. The devil statue waved its claws as it retreated, and 2 demonic hammers appeared out of nowhere. These demonic hammers were as big as mountains. Woo woo! They made a whistling sound and smashed the wishful steel staff. Fellow Daoist, don't fight with this devil monarch. This kind of devil monarch is very powerful. If fellow Daoist has a powerful spell, you can use it and kill him. The cultivator had not finished speaking. Ao! Several devil generals had already flown out from the demonic array, waving their devil weapons and urging their magical powers to stop him, forcing him to not even finish his words. Chapter 4091. Boom! The devil hammer and the wishful staff collided, and a hurricane suddenly rose. Woo! One of the devil hammers soared into the sky like a star. The cultivator who was fighting with the devil general was dumbfounded. He looked at Xiao Hua's golden body in disbelief. It was the first time he had seen a human cultivator whose strength was comparable to the devil race's devil monarch. Xiao Hua sensed that this cultivator's spiritual awareness was different from the previous one. He knew that he had received a military order to come in and help. At this time, he knocked away the devil hammer of the devil monarch. After a little thought, he opened his mouth and the Teng Jiao shears flew out. A golden light like the rising sun illuminated the inside of the devil array. The raging devils in the bloody light howled, covered their blinded eyes, and shrank into the bloody mist. Swoosh! The golden light flashed past, and the demon monarch looked at his waist in disbelief. Layers upon layers of blood mixed with black flames gushed out from his waist. There was simply no time for him to dodge. The soaring dragon shears had already cut him into 2 at the waist. Who are you? The devil monarch only thought of asking at this time, and the devil chi in his waist was surging, quickly repairing the devil body. At this moment, above Xiao Hua's head, a 5-colored beam of light suddenly emerged and hit the devil monarch's heart faster than lightning. Boom! With a loud sound, the devil body, which was indestructible in the eyes of ordinary cultivators, and the layers of entangled devil armor outside were all turned into flying ash in this beam of light. The devil monarch raised his wings and flapped them weakly a few times, and his body fell backward with a bang. Ah! The cultivator's surprise had just passed. Seeing Xiao Hua kill the devil monarch, the excitement surged into his heart like a climax. However, Xiao Hua's subsequent actions made him puzzled. He saw Xiao Hua raise his hand and pick up a jade bottle. The jade bottle shone brilliantly, and a beam of light fell toward the devil monarch. The devil monarch's body disappeared along with the beam of light. In fact, he couldn't even stop the tens of thousands of red tentacles that rushed out of the Blood River demonic formation. Buzz! Before the excitement of the cultivators could disappear, they saw a new change in the demonic array. The blood-red color from before slowly condensed into pus. Large droplets of pus dripped down. Each drop of pus contained hundreds of tiny devils. Moreover, as the pus dripped down, the entire space trembled slightly. It was as if even the void was about to be penetrated. Not good. The cultivator turned pale with fright as he hurriedly slapped the top of his head, causing a lotus-like treasure to fly out. Pu. The treasure spewed out 2 halos of light, one blue and one white, which enveloped the cultivator's entire body. Following which, the cultivator sent a voice transmission, "Senior, hurry up and leave." This is the Demon Array's Blood Sea Transformation Array. It's formed when hundreds of thousands of demon generals and demon beasts fuse their demon blood essence together and devour each other. We Dao sect cultivators can't resist it alone. Not waiting for the cultivator to finish speaking, a crackling sound echoed out from within the devilish formation. With Xiao Hua's figure as the epicenter, it surged upwards in all directions. The large droplets of pus and blood all turned into green smoke within the thunderbolt. The cultivator was stunned once again. How can the thunder technique be used within the demon array? The cultivator was slightly stunned. Immediately, half a drop of pus and blood fell on the blue and white halos. ZZZT. With a muffled sound, the blood and pus easily penetrated the halos. The devil inside the blood and pus wantonly devoured the brilliance of the treasures and headed towards the cultivator's back. Not good. The cultivator turned pale with fright. He opened his mouth and a scarlet light rolled out and fell on his back. Unfortunately, where the scarlet light fell, the blood and pus only flashed with a blood-red light and actually devoured the scarlet light. It was completely useless. The cultivator didn't dare to be negligent. He didn't have time to say anything to Xiao Hua and urged his figure to escape from the demonic array. Moreover, at the same time his figure flew, the cultivator waved his hand and threw out a jade talisman. A pink brilliance passed through the halos and wrapped around the blood and pus. The pink brilliance was like a flower bud, and the blood and pus was like a maggot. It tried its best to drill into the flower bud. Even though the pink brilliance flourished, it still couldn't really stop it. What was special was that the cultivator fled in panic. In front of his head, there was a large drop of blood and pus that let out a ghostly howl and fell towards him. Looking at Xiao Hua again, under the thunder technique, the large amount of blood and pus was destroyed. However, above the lightning, there were still blood droplets that fell like a rainstorm. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the fleeing cultivator as well as the thunderbolt that stopped within the demonic array. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. No matter if it was the cultivator or the thunderbolt, they were all sucked into his hand. Then, Xiao Hua's body emitted lightning. Whoosh! His entire figure also flew in the direction the cultivator wanted to escape. Boom! In front of Xiao Hua's head, there should be a barrier of the demonic formation. Under the impact of Xiao Hua's golden body and lightning escape, a several thousand-meter-long crack was forcibly torn open. Xiao Hua's 30,000-meter-long golden body bullied the demonic formation and charged out from inside. As soon as Xiao Hua came out of the demonic array, his eyes immediately lit up. Hundreds of huge flying boats stopped within the space of 10,000 li. Each flying boat was surrounded by cultivators. On the flying boats, there were all kinds of powerful light pillars. These light pillars gathered together to form a huge light shield that protected the flying boats and the cultivators. Inside the light shield, there were many cultivators who formed a formation. Each of them urged their magic power and fought against the tentacles and devil generals that stretched out from the demonic array. The appearance of the thunderbolt and Xiao Hua naturally attracted the attention of the cultivators. However, they only used their divine sense or their eyes to sweep over them. They hurriedly fought with all their might. The light shield that protected the human race was abnormally weak. It seemed like the demonic array could collapse with just a little bit of attack. "Fellow Daoist, quickly come and help me." Xiao Hua had just put down the thunderbolt and the cultivators when a loud voice immediately came from the group of flying boats in the distance. The divine sense that swept over was exactly what Xiao Hua had just seen. Xiao Hua naturally knew that the situation was critical. His whole body flashed with brilliance. While shrinking his transcendent's golden body, he teleported to the place where the voice came from. Xiao Hua's figure passed through the light shield. The light shield shattered with a poof sound. There was no effective resistance at all. In the center of the human cultivators, there was a square flying boat. At this time, there were no cultivators on the flying boat. Everyone flew to the sky above the flying boat. Above the flying ship, a yellow pagoda surged. This pagoda was divided into 9 levels, and these people were also arranged into 9 levels. Every cultivator stimulated their true essence and poured it into the pagoda. At the top of the pagoda, there was a scholarly-looking young cultivator. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his hands were forming strange seals, causing a yellow beam of light to shoot up into the sky. It was also this light pillar that blocked the demonic array, not letting it fall. As soon as the big drop of blood and pus touched the yellow light pillar, it immediately condensed into fist-sized stones and rolled around the light shield. "Hihi, fellow Daoist, please wait a moment." Xiao Hua looked up and down and nodded slightly. As he spoke, his figure flew to the side of the young cultivator. Just when the cultivators were a little puzzled, Xiao Hua made a gesture with both hands. The space within 1,000 miles was filled with a whimpering roar. Thousands of heaven and earth spirit chi gathered toward Xiao Hua. Just when all the cultivators' faces changed, Xiao Hua waved his hands. Woo! Above Xiao Hua's head, a palm thousands of miles in size appeared. Following Xiao Hua's gesture, it slapped toward the demonic array. Boom! There was a loud noise like a landslide. The huge blood array was suddenly opened thousands of miles wide. All the demonic soldiers and generals inside were either killed or scattered. The light pillar that was suppressed by the blood array also rushed into the demonic army with a woo sound. Hundreds of demonic generals were killed by this light pillar. However, after activating the spell, the light around Xiao Hua's body suddenly converged. His figure shook slightly and his face became a little pale. "Senior, don't worry." Seeing Xiao Hua's magical ability, the young cultivator didn't dare to call him fellow Daoist anymore. He hurriedly shouted, "Senior, please take a pill first. This junior can still hold on." "No need." Xiao Hua's figure flashed and appeared next to the cultivator. He reached out and said, "Give me the jade slip that controls the magic treasure." "Yes." The cultivator didn't hesitate at all. He took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly changed. He used his divine sense to explore the jade slip. However, after a moment, he returned the jade slip to the cultivator and said, "Step aside." "Yes, senior." The cultivator's expression relaxed. He hurriedly withdrew his magic power and moved to the side. As soon as the cultivator left, the light pillar immediately dimmed. It looked like it was about to shrink back. Xiao Hua formed a spell with both hands and slowly landed on the pagoda. Although there wasn't any special fluctuation or brilliance, as soon as Xiao Hua's spell touched the pagoda, woo-woo, the entire pagoda let out a trembling sound. Immediately after, the previously dimmed light pillar rose again. Boom! The light pillar swept across the entire blood array. The demonic bodies of several thousand demonic generals were penetrated by this light pillar. This. The young cultivator next to him had just taken a pill and hadn't adjusted his breathing. He was immediately shocked by the scene before him. He was so shocked that he was somewhat speechless. He was very clear in his heart. This Juechen pagoda was his sect's important treasure. It had always been used when setting up formations. Although he'd heard that there was a Dao school senior who activated it by himself in the past, he'd never seen it. None of the current sect masters and elders in his sect were able to activate this Juechen pagoda to its best effect. However, this unknown senior in front of him had just glanced at the method to activate the Juechen pagoda and was able to display such a great effect. How could he not be shocked? This cultivator was also a talented general. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, he immediately shouted, "Senior, activate the Juechen pagoda to defend the flying boat. Fellow brothers, we're going to the demonic formation to break it. Senior just killed a demonic monarch in charge of the formation. Right now is the best time to break the formation." Yes. The group of cultivators received the order and all withdrew from the surroundings of the Juechen pagoda. They stood around Xiao Hua and rested for a bit. After taking medicinal pills, they formed a formation again and ordered the cultivators near them to charge out of the light barrier. Chapter 4092. At the same time Xiao Hua activated the Juechen pagoda, that young cultivator flew into the air and released his divine sense, calmly commanding the disciples. "Senior, I'll have to trouble you to kill those 3 devil kings." While the young cultivator was commanding, he suddenly turned his head and said respectfully to Xiao Hua, "Oh." Xiao Hua was startled, then his divine sense looked towards the direction the young cultivator was pointing at. Sure enough, the 3 devil kings activated the demonic formation, trapping a dozen or so cultivators. Those cultivators were about to die. "Okay." Xiao Hua slightly nodded. The young cultivator smiled and said, "Many thanks, Senior." Just as the young cultivator finished speaking, he saw above the blood formation in the distance, woo. Astral winds suddenly rose, and an indescribable force descended from the sky. The 3 devil kings hastily wanted to raise their demonic artifacts to block, but the divine sense hammer that was like a star smashed down, smashing them into the air in an instant. 2 devil kings' demonic bodies were torn apart, 1 devil king's arm was broken. Those dozen or so cultivators escaped with their lives, each one of them beaming with joy. They activated their magic treasures and chased down, killing the 3 devil kings in a short moment. The young cultivator's smile froze on his face. He somewhat helplessly looked at the Juechen pagoda in Xiao Hua's hand. He originally wanted to ask Xiao Hua to activate the Juechen pagoda to rescue them, but he didn't expect Xiao Hua to actually use a divine ability, injuring the 3 devil kings without anyone noticing. "Oh, there's also this place." Just as the young cultivator was about to release his divine sense to look at another place, Xiao Hua faintly muttered, then patted the Juechen pagoda floating in the air. The entire pagoda let out a happy rumble, and a beam of light streaked across the sky, instantly killing a devil king 1,000 li away. Seeing Xiao Hua so familiar with the Juechen pagoda, the young cultivator was completely speechless. He no longer diverted his attention to the safety of the flying boat, and wholeheartedly commanded the battle situation. As for Xiao Hua, while releasing the netherworld origin power to plunder souls, he also activated the Juechen pagoda to kill high-level devils according to the young cultivator's command. After no less than 3 days and 3 nights, that demonic formation finally slowly withdrew. However, the defeated demon soldiers and generals did not scatter. Instead, they left in an orderly formation, not giving the human cultivators any opportunity to attack. Even Xiao Hua, who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to beat a drowning dog, sighed for a moment when he saw the strict demon formation and gave up the idea of pursuing. Woo! Seeing the devil army disappear into the void, all the cultivators screamed and cheered with tears streaming down their faces. They were already at death's door and were prepared to perish together with the devil army, but they were actually able to escape with their lives and even defeat the devil army. This was truly beyond their expectations, and they couldn't help but want to vent the joy of escaping from death's door. The young cultivator smiled as he looked around. He ordered the nearby disciples to arrange for people to clean up the battlefield. He himself flew in front of Xiao Hua and bowed. "Junior is Shandao sect's Ou Chu. Greetings, Senior. May I know Senior's Daoist name? There's no need to be so polite. This old man is Xiao Hua, and his Daoist name is Daoist Master Xiao." Xiao Hua smiled as he helped Ou Chu up. "So it's Daoist Xiao," Ou Chu said respectfully. Junior brings my 120,000 Shindao sect's disciples to thank Daoist for saving our lives. As he spoke, Oyu Chu bowed again. This old man already said, there's no need to be so polite. Xiao Hua supported Oyu Chu, not allowing him to bow. He smiled and said, this old man just happened to pass by here. It was just a small effort. Moreover, this old man's help only increased the speed at which you defeated the devil army. It's nothing much. Sigh. Oyu Chu's expression became even more solemn. However, he sighed and said, this is all because Senior is trying to flatter my Shindao sect. Junior knows it very well. If not for Senior's sudden appearance, the devil monarch who was fighting with Junior would have blocked Senior's path. Junior would have been injured long ago. Moreover, if Senior didn't control this Ju Chen pagoda, how would we have the chance to counterattack? To be honest, if Daoist didn't come, 20,000 of my 120,000 Shindao sect's disciples wouldn't have escaped alive. Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't say much. He passed the Ju Chen pagoda to Oyu Chu and said, this Ju Chen pagoda is really not bad. Oyu Chu took the Ju Chen pagoda and put it away. He smiled and said, that's right. This Ju Chen pagoda is my Shindao sect's sect-guarding treasure. It's a pity that my Shindao sect doesn't have an expert like Daoist Xiao to activate it. This treasure has been covered in dust. As he spoke, Oyu Chu raised his eyes to look at the thundership parked in the distance. He asked probingly, forgive Junior for being blind. Junior has never seen an expert like Daoist Xiao on the battlefield before. Senior, I'm afraid that you've already reached the Dao actualization realm, right? Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this old man is from the outside world. Previously, I used the transportation array to go to another place. Perhaps when I was passing by the ruins, I was disturbed by those devil bastards and was accidentally transported to the tribute wasteland. After investigating carefully, this old man found out that the ruins is actually surrounded by the devil race. This old man can't even leave if he wants to. Oyu Chu quivered and hurriedly said, Daoist Xiao, my Shindao sect is one of the 3 great sects of the ruins. It's also a branch of the Taibai sect. If Daoist Xiao doesn't have a place to stay in the ruins, this junior boldly invites Daoist Xiao to be a guest at my Shindao sect's Shenchao Peak's Zhenming Hall. How could Xiao Hua not know what Oyu Chu meant? He smiled and said, since I've arrived at the ruins, this old man will pay a visit to the Shindao sect, the Incense School, and the Misty School. However, this old man has to rush to the southwest border first. Oh, right, Oyu Chu, your Shindao sect's disciple, WN Wuxin, received news that the Devil Emperor is leading 500,000 devil soldiers to ambush the 10 sects of the southwest. Impossible. Oyu Chu shook his head and said, the whereabouts of the Devil Emperors are uncertain. Even the sect masters of the various sects in the discussion hall couldn't find them using their secret techniques. How could an ordinary disciple obtain news about the Devil Emperors? If this news isn't fake, then it must be a trap. Hehe. This isn't up to this old man to decide. Xiao Hua smiled and brought Oyu Chu to the thundership. After removing the defense of the thundership, he released some of the disciples. Under Oyu Chu's astonished gaze, Xiao Hua stored the thundership into the space. Wan Wuxin and the others naturally recognized Oyu Chu. They all went up to greet him. Wan Wuxin blushed and told him the news. In front of Wan Wuxin, Oyu Chu naturally didn't reprimand him. However, he casually told him what he understood and said, according to my understanding of the devil race, the whereabouts of the devil emperors wouldn't be known by ordinary devil generals, much less our human race. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that this news is true. However, how could the devil emperors only bring 500,000 devil soldiers? The devil race isn't like our human race. They can reproduce as they wish without any special difficulties. Just now, the number of devil soldiers that besieged our Shindao sect was at least 500,000. Yes, this disciple knows. Wan Wuxin blushed. This disciple can't be sure, so he didn't dare to tell the other disciples. Only after meeting Senior Xiao did this disciple dare to say it. Spiritual Master Xiao, please make the decision. Oyu Chu smiled. Wuxin, this old man doesn't blame you. As long as we receive any news, regardless of whether it's true or false, we must report it to the sect for analysis. You did the right thing. However, the situation is urgent. Even if this news is true, I'm afraid we can't do anything about it. Yes, this disciple understands. Wan Wuxin carefully replied. Oyu Chu then explained to Xiao Hua, Junior led the troops to the Thousand Lakes embankment to rescue the 200,000 disciples who were trapped by the devil soldiers. When we arrived, we were surrounded by the devil monarchs. Since the danger has passed, Junior will continue to head to the Thousand Lakes embankment. Therefore, this Junior can't possibly go to the southwest border. Of course, this Junior will also instruct this subordinate to pass this news to the Central Army and ask the conference hall to make a decision and send disciples to rescue them. Good. Xiao Hua nodded, then this old man can be at ease. Oyu Chu didn't delay and ordered a disciple to fly to the flying ship in the center. After a while, the disciple returned and reported that he had already sent the news. Did the conference hall send any orders? Oyu Chu asked again. The disciple shook his head. The conference hall didn't send any orders. At this point, the disciple looked at Xiao Hua again and said respectfully, also, the seniors of the conference hall have asked Spiritual Master Xiao to come to the conference hall if you have the time. Yes, this old man understands. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and looked at Oyu Chu, asking, do you have any extra magic tools to communicate with the conference hall? Oyu Chu was shocked and said anxiously, Spiritual Master, this old man wants to go to the southwest border to take a look. Xiao Hua smiled, however, this old man doesn't have any magic tools to communicate with. I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to contact the Dao disciples in the ruins. This magic tool is a secret creation of the sect. Every disciple who leads the army only has one. Oyu Chu smiled, I'm afraid this item can't be lent to senior. It doesn't matter. Xiao Hua waved his hand, it's best if you have it, but it doesn't matter if you don't. Spiritual Master Xiao Oyu Chu thought for a while and advised, this junior knows that senior's magic power is incomparable. Hundreds of thousands of demon soldiers are nothing in your eyes. Although the demonic formation from before is strange, if you want to leave, no one can stop you. However, you must know that you are alone. Even if you don't have the Demon Emperor, fighting hundreds of thousands of demon soldiers is beyond your power. Just like just now, Senior may have killed thousands of demon generals, but under the demonic formation, you have no choice but to avoid it. Moreover, if you want to go to the Southwest 10 sects, you will have to fight against hundreds of thousands or even millions of demon soldiers. This junior knows the strength of the Southwest 10 sects very well. The 10 sects together might have millions of disciples, but how many of them can really fight? Especially since the 10 sects don't have a commander who can lead the army. The 100,000 disciples are like scattered sand. Even if you go, I'm afraid you won't be able to save many disciples. However, if it's a trap set by the Demon Emperor, you will have to face the Demon Emperor. Spiritual Master, why do you want to put yourself in a disadvantageous position? Yes, you are right. Xiao Hua nodded after listening to Oyu Chu's analysis. He wasn't a talented commander, so he naturally didn't know much about mobilizing troops. However, just now, when facing the demonic formation, Xiao Hua saw the use of mobilizing troops and the power of an army in battle. Although Xiao Hua could move unhindered within the demonic formation, it was impossible for him to destroy the demonic formation. Chapter 4093. If Spiritual Master wants to exterminate the devil race, you can follow me to the Thousand Lakes embankment. There are countless devil race members there for Senior to vent your anger on. Oyu Chu took the opportunity to persuade Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and shook his head, forget it. Since I already know about this, I won't feel at ease if I don't go and take a look. All right. Oyu Chu saw that Xiao Hua insisted on going. He thought for a moment and said, since Spiritual Master insists on going, then I'll send 2,000 disciples to follow Spiritual Master. First, they can be dispatched by Spiritual Master. Second, they can give Spiritual Master some ideas. Xiao Hua looked at Oyu Chu with satisfaction and nodded slightly. However, after a moment, he rejected again. This old man appreciates your good intentions. This time, I'm only going to the southwest border to take a look. Just as you said, fighting against the Devil Emperor and 500,000 devil soldiers is not something I can do alone. Therefore, not only do you not need to send disciples to follow me, you also need to bring along the disciples of the 10 sects on my flying ship. If the southwest border is really raided by the Devil Emperor, these disciples will be the descendants of the 10 sects. Oh right, if you have a map of the ruins or the southwest border, give it to this old man so that I won't get lost. Alright, this junior thanks Spiritual Master Xiao on behalf of the 10 sect. Oyu Chu handed a jade slip to Xiao Hua and bowed respectfully. The disciples of the 10 sects also bowed. When they stood up, Oyu Chu said, "This junior still has military matters to attend to, so I don't dare to stay here for long. This is junior's communication talisman. If senior returns from the southwest, you can send a message to this junior when you're near the conference hall." Xiao Hua took the communication talisman and looked at the cultivators who had already cleaned up the battlefield and were ready to leave. He said, "Hurry up and go. This old man hopes that you'll succeed. I'll be counting on Spiritual Master's auspicious word." Oyu Chu smiled and raised his hand. "Everyone, listen to my order. Set off according to the 4-army formation, Wang Wang." The dozens of flying ships began to rumble and light scattered everywhere. When Oyu Chu and the others boarded the ships, they lined up neatly and flew towards a certain direction. Xiao Hua took Oyu Chu's jade scroll and looked at it for a moment. Then, he looked at the stars in the sky and mocked himself. If I could find the 10 sects in the southwest with just the map in the jade scroll, why would I need Wn Wuxin to follow me? As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure flashed, and he had already disappeared from where he stood. In the early morning, when the sun had just risen, Xiao Hua was sitting on top of a mountain peak. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the 3 suns as well as the outline of the full moon that was opposite to the suns. He thought to himself, this place isn't Dawn Rain Continent, nor is it Hidden Immortal Continent. The vital chi of heaven and earth in this space seems to be different. However, judging from the situation of the past few days, he can be used by this old man. However, even if I can use it, can the disciples in my space use it? Can those disciples who have successfully cultivated in the space survive in this space? This seems to be a problem. Moreover, what Oyu Chu said is correct. Although this Xiao is brave, in the end, he cannot compare to a group of people. There are more than 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples in this space. Moreover, the cultivation of these disciples was high enough. However, although these disciples' cultivation is high, they have not gone through a true life and death experience. In the future, they may encounter a bottleneck that they cannot break through. Now that there is a great formation in this space, it is the best opportunity for them to gain experience. If this old man can bring them out, it will be beneficial for them, and it will also be beneficial for the 10 sects in the southwest. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and pulled out the green-robed Xiao Hua. The current green-robed Xiao Hua did not need to rely on the formless nascent soul to condense his body. In the air, wind rolled and clouds surged, and a fist-sized crystal slowly condensed. As more and more vital chi condensed, a human figure appeared. In just a short moment, the green-robed Xiao Hua who looked exactly like Xiao Hua lazily stood in front of Xiao Hua. "Fellow Daoist." Xiao Hua raised his hand and smiled. "What do you think of I's idea?" "Of course it's good." The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. "I always felt that the disciples in my sect were lacking something. Previously, I didn't understand, but now that fellow Daoist has thought of it, I also understand. They are lacking experience. We must let them experience life and death, and experience the test of blood and fire. Alright, if fellow Daoist thinks it is possible, then there is no problem." Xiao Hua nodded. "Now, the only problem left is whether they can leave the space or not." Indeed, the green-robed Xiao Hua was also somewhat hesitant. After all, they are using the spiritual light in the space to conceive their nascent soul. It is different from the vital chi of heaven and earth outside the space. This place is also different from the hidden immortal continent. I am also not certain. We have to try. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and asked, "You should choose a disciple that you are certain of. Find a disciple who has just conceived a nascent soul." The green-robed Xiao Hua seemed to have already decided. His achievements are limited, and it is also very strenuous to conceive a nascent soul. If it is not possible, then let him reincarnate earlier. Sweat. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He wanted to say something, but even if he opened his mouth, there was no way to teach him. After all, the green-robed Xiao Hua was only his primordial spirit, and in terms of emotions, he was not a real person. He could not ask him to respect every life like he did. All right, we will do as you say. As Xiao Hua spoke, he concealed his figure and released his consciousness. He was prepared to immediately return that nascent soul realm disciple to the space if he found anything strange. As Xiao Hua released his consciousness, that nascent soul realm disciple appeared in the air. He looked around in confusion, and then his gaze fell on the green-robed Xiao Hua. He hurriedly bowed and saluted. Disciple Wang Feng greets ancestral master. "En," the green-robed Xiao Hua said with great magnanimity, "this old man has brought you all to a space to gain experience. You can try to use the fireball technique." "Yes, ancestral master." Wang Feng did not dare to be negligent. He rubbed his hands, but there was no movement between his hands. Wang Feng was stunned, and hurriedly released his divine sense. Then, his face was filled with understanding and surprise. He closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and then slowly rubbed his hands again. A fireball a few feet in size slowly appeared in his hands. The green-robed Xiao Hua asked, "How do you feel about the vital qi of heaven and earth here?" "Vital qi of heaven and earth?" Wang Feng smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, "Ancestral master, our Shenhua continent does not have any vital qi of heaven and earth. The technique's disciple uses are all recorded in the sect's ancient records. Disciple has not used these techniques on Shenhua continent before, so disciple has no way to compare them." "En, release your nascent soul," the green-robed Xiao Hua said again, "release it slowly." "Yes, disciple understands." A trace of panic appeared in Wang Feng's eyes. He clearly understood the consequences of releasing his nascent soul in a place with vital qi of heaven and earth, but he did not dare to disobey the green-robed Xiao Hua's order. He raised his hand and a misty green light spurted out, and his nascent soul appeared on top of his head. Sure enough, when the nascent soul revealed its small hand, bubbles appeared on its small hand, and then the small hand began to collapse. Shua. Before Wang Feng could do anything, a huge force swept him away. His vision blurred, and he returned to the familiar fortune gate. And Jade Archive Xiao Hua was standing in front of him. Wang Feng could not tell who was Jade Archive Xiao Hua and who was the green-robed Xiao Hua. He hurriedly said respectfully, "Ancestral master, disciple's nascent soul cannot appear in the world you found." "En, I understand." Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. "You can cultivate at ease." Then Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked the green-robed Xiao Hua to find a fention-severing disciple and avoid refinement disciple, but their nascent souls also did not dare to fly out. "It seems." Xiao Hua nodded slightly and said, "I'm afraid only body integration disciples can release their nascent souls." "En, it should be so." The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. Body integration disciples merge their nascent souls with their physical bodies. As a spiritual body, the nascent soul also has the characteristics of the physical body, so it can use the physical body to adapt to different vital qi of heaven and earth. This is also the reason why our formless nascent souls can appear in the ruins. There are also I's 108th stage loose nascent souls. Xiao Hua added, "They have passed through the lightning tribulation and have already reached the spiritual body stage, so they don't need to be afraid of different vital qi of heaven and earth. Ask them to come out and take a look," the green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile. "We can't just let I's disciples take risks, right?" Xiao Hua released 2 loose nascent souls, and as expected, they were not affected at all. "Fortune Gate's disciples have to come out." Finally, Xiao Hua said, "Even I's disciples have to come out, but their nascent souls are condensed from space's Shenhua continent, so tell them that no one can release their nascent souls. As long as their nascent souls are in their physical bodies, everything will be fine." "But," the green-robed Xiao Hua frowned, "even if we disciples come out and form an army of 100,000, who will be the commander?" "Naturally, it will be Xiao Sheng." The scholarly cultivator called when Chu shouted arrogantly in Xiao Hua's body. Other than Xiao Sheng, who else has the ability to command an army? Che. Xiao Hua sneered. Listen to the name you gave yourself. Wen Chu, your grandmother. The Wen Chu star is a star revered by all scholarly cultivators, and you actually call yourself Wen Chu Puff. Following a soft sound, the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua flew out from Xiao Hua's middle dantian, holding an illusory folding fan in his hand. He waved it lightly and said proudly, "What's Wen Chu?" Fellow immortal body called himself Namo Metria, Kid Mo Ling called himself Sure, and even that dry guy called himself Celestial. You stay on the side. The green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile. You don't even have the perseverance to help I set up a fortune gate, and you still want to mobilize an army? Who said I don't have patience? The scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua argued. At that time, didn't Xiao Sheng just obtain the true essence of scholarly cultivation? I didn't have time to take care of your fortune gate. Enough. Xiao Hua said with a smile. You and I are not people who can command an army, and I can't be at ease leaving the lives of a group of disciples in your hands. The scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua didn't argue and asked curiously, so, fellow immortal wants to personally go to the southwest border? Chapter 4094. You and I can't do it, but there are others. Xiao Hua smiled. Don't you and I have a ready-made candidate in our space? How could you forget? Oh, that's right. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua held his forehead and said, I forgot about him. Although his cultivation base is only at the level of a Confucian cultivator, he can only be my grand disciple, but his ability to command troops is something that I cannot compare with. He's the best candidate to be the commander. Yes. Green-robed Xiao Hua also smiled. This matter can only be done by true monarch Qingyuan. However, fellow Daoist, if you let true monarch Qingyuan Sun Jian lead my fortune gate's 100,000 disciples, will you be at ease? Aren't you afraid that he will leak the secret to the immortal emperor? He is a loyal follower of the immortal palace's immortal emperor. Hee. Xiao Hua laughs like an old fox, not to mention that with this Xiao's current cultivation, I'm not afraid of any immortal emperor. Just based on this Xiao's control of an iron-blooded army, would the immortal palace dare to challenge this Xiao? True monarch Qingyuan is the immortal emperor's trusted aide. He will definitely tell the immortal emperor about what happened here, and he will also tell the immortal emperor about your strength. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua nodded. Of course, he will also judge the situation and give the immortal emperor a suggestion. I don't need to think too much about it. Previously, true monarch Qingyuan was ostracized in the immortal palace because his cultivation was insufficient. Although the immortal emperor stood his ground, once he made a mistake, it was inevitable that he would be punished. Xiao Hua continued, now, true monarch Qingyuan is already the sage of literature. In the future, true monarch Qingyuan will definitely be an important minister of the immortal palace. The immortal emperor can't disobey his words. Moreover, he has received I's teachings, and the entire immortal palace will benefit from it. It can be said that I am the master of all scholarly cultivators. Heaven, earth, ruler, teacher, and family are not nonsense. Deal. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua and green-robed Xiao Hua both nodded. Then, as fellow Daoist thinks, we will ask true monarch Qingyuan to lead our fortune gate's 100,000 troops. However, fellow Daoist still needs to keep some secret. Of course. Xiao Hua smiled. The 100,000 troops will be divided into several groups, and several fellow Daoists will supervise the troops. We also need to transform. Don't let that guy recognize us. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua suggested. Then, Xiao Hua discussed with a few Essence Soul avatars and pulled perfected Lord Qingyuan out of the space. The moment true Lord Qingyuan came out of the space, his eyes were filled with fear. After all, his experiences in the heavenly prison were truly frightening. However, seeing the clear sky and the mountain peaks and huge rocks, which were almost the same as in the space, immortal Qingyuan Sun Jian was overjoyed. However, looking at the smiling Xiao Hua, Sun Jian still bowed and saluted. Then, suppressing his ecstasy, he asked, Immortal Xiao, can we leave the heaven prison and return to the hidden immortal continent? Take a look. Xiao Hua raised his finger and pointed at the 3 suns in the sky. Ah! 3 suns? Sun Tian was dumbfounded. His eyes sparkled as he looked around and asked curiously, where is this? This is the ruins. Xiao Hua explains, we did escape from the heaven prison, but we didn't return to the hidden immortal continent. Instead, we accidentally landed here. However, don't worry. Since I have the ability to escape from the heavenly prison, I will definitely have the ability to bring you back to the hidden immortal continent. At this time, Sun Jian simply prostrated himself in admiration of Xiao Hua. What kind of place was the heavenly prison? No cultivator could escape from this place, but Xiao Hua was actually able to come out alive. Moreover, Xiao Hua's current cultivation was far beyond his imagination. Sun Jian respectfully says, yes, Immortal Xiao's methods, I know them very well. I called you out today because I have something to tell you. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and explained, if you and I want to leave the ruins, defeating the Devil Clan is the most important thing. Only when they retreat can the transmission channel open. Of course I can command the troops to fight the enemy, Sun Jian said carefully, however, you and I are outsiders, how can we command the cultivators of the ruins? Holding the commander's seal but not being able to control the hearts of the people is a military taboo. How can the cultivators of the ruins listen to our orders? Xiao Hua laughed, we naturally have our own disciples. Immortal Xiao's own disciples? Speaking of this, Sun Jian's face suddenly changed. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. However, looking at Xiao Hua's indifference, he became somewhat pensive. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror, threw it in the air, and said with a smile, since the Kunlun immortal realm can accommodate immortal Qingyuan, then my disciple can also be placed inside. Alas, Immortal Xiao still knows this secret in the end. Immortal Qingyuan Sun Jian looked at the Kunlun mirror that flickered with a mysterious brilliance under the sunlight and sighed slightly. Xiao Hua's heart moved. Thinking of what Sun Jian wanted to say in the heavenly prison, he rolled his eyes and said with a smile, in this world, there is no secret that can never be known by others. Since I got the Kunlun mirror, I naturally know the secret of the Kunlun mirror and the Kunlun immortal realm. From this point of view, the others. At this point, Xiao Hua's mind suddenly lit up, as if he had understood something. He forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart and probed, other treasures, such as the secret of the Penglai immortal realm, are naturally nothing. Actually, the immortal emperor also has his own difficulties. Sun Jian fell into Xiao Hua's trap. He did not hesitate and said, the immortal emperor wanted to search the entire hidden immortal continent, so he had to control the clear sky mirror. And the clear sky mirror, in essence, it is a Daoist heavenly spiritual treasure. Even though it has been reforged by my Confucian senior, without the constant nourishment of the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi, it cannot be fully utilized. As the leader of the Confucian cultivators, the immortal emperor was in charge of the immortal palace. Of course, he could not cultivate the Daoist techniques. Therefore, he had no choice but to take out the core of the clear sky mirror, which formed the Penglai immortal realm. He. Xiao Hua sneered, the immortal emperor has a good plan. Not only did he use the Penglai immortal realm to imprison my Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators, but he also used them to nourish the clear sky mirror. Then, he used the clear sky mirror to search the entire hidden immortal continent and capture my Daoist cultivators. Sun Jian was a little embarrassed, as if this was something he did. He smiled and said, this was not done by the current immortal emperor, it's the same for everyone. Xiao Hua replied indifferently. Actually, Sun Jian explained again, the immortal emperor kept the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators captive for the clear sky mirror, but it also protected the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi so that they would not be killed by the Confucian noble families on the hidden immortal continent. Other than these 2 reasons, there is a third reason, right? Xiao Hua smiled and said, controlling the clear sky mirror means controlling the Penglai immortal realm. At the same time, he also controls all the Daoist heavenly spiritual qi 5th grade and above cultivators. If the immortal emperor is useful, he can also make these Daoist cultivators work for him to resist the Confucian noble families, right? Sun Jian's expression changed slightly. He shook his head and said, I don't know about this. Moreover, I ask that you keep this secret for the immortal emperor. Otherwise, the immortal palace will not be stable, and the Penglai immortal realm will not be peaceful. Why would I say anything more? Xiao Hua said bitterly, unless this Xiao kills you right now, you will definitely tell the immortal emperor about the Kunlun mirror. If this Xiao says it, the immortal emperor will probably tell the whole world about the Kunlun mirror. This Xiao won't have any peaceful days in the future. Moreover, in order to weaken the immortal emperor's power, those Confucian noble families might attack the Penglai immortal realm. Our Daoist cultivators will have a hard time surviving. Yes, it's good that you know. I will also keep this a secret. Sun Jian naturally knew that Xiao Hua would not kill him for no reason. He looked at Xiao Hua and nodded slightly. All right, Sun Jian. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, wait a moment. I will bring my Fortune Gate disciples out of the Kunlun immortal realm. Let's see how you plan to arrange the troops. If you have any orders, I will not dare to disobey. For his own safety, Sun Jian had to agree to Xiao Hua's arrangement. He replied without any hesitation. Xiao Hua looked up and flew to a plane. The Kunlun mirror in his hand trembled and the green-robed Xiao Hua, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua, and the others changed their appearances and flew out. They cupped their hands towards Xiao Hua and stood in the air without saying a word. As for Sun Jian, who was standing beside Xiao Hua, they did not even look at him. Sun Jian used the clear eye technique to check the cultivation of these clones. He could not help but suck in a few breaths of cold air. Not to mention the green-robed Xiao Hua, the soul cultivator Xiao Hua, and the dragon-veined Xiao Hua's cultivation. Even the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's cultivation was half a level higher than his. Although it seemed that their strength was only half a level higher, Sun Jian could clearly feel that the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's strength was not just half a level higher than his. Sun Jian's surprise did not stop there. Seeing thousands of nascent soul and spirit-severing disciples come out in a line and stand behind the green-robed Xiao Hua and the others, Sun Jian's eyeballs almost fell out. In the hidden immortal mainland's Daoist country, when did so many experts appear? He almost wanted to shake Xiao Hua's shoulder and ask, how did he teach these Fortune Gate disciples? However, thinking about the thousands of years he had spent in the Kunlun immortal domain, Sun Jian's heart calmed down slightly. After all, it was thousands of years. To have such great achievements was normal. However, when the 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples stood in the air, Sun Jian was completely dumbfounded. He did not even have the strength to be surprised and was too lazy to ask anything. He already understood that when Xiao Hua was surrounded by him at the Black Wind Ridge, he had already taken all the Black Wind Ridge disciples into the Kunlun mirror. And after the heavenly prison's strange fate, these disciples had also become rare Daoist experts on the hidden immortal mainland. However, Sun Jian still could not help but feel excited in his heart. 100,000 R. 100,000 R. The Fortune Gate's current strength is comparable to a 4th grade family. No, it's more than enough to compare to a 3rd grade family. If Xiao Hua returned to the hidden immortal mainland, wouldn't he become a grandmaster who can summon the wind and summon the rain? If he stomps his feet in the Black Wind Ridge, the entire hidden immortal mainland will tremble, right?